Okay. Hello. My name is Vernon and I've been in the film business for approximately 48 years. And what drove me to sound, I don't know. I don't know quite what, but we'll get into that subject a little bit later. I'm 93 this year, so I've got a lot of experience behind me.
Thank you, Vernon, for joining us. It's very kind of you to join us to talk about your wonderful and prestigious career. The first question I had for you was what made you decide to pursue a career in the film business, and how do you then go about achieving that?
Well, I suppose the early days of my childhood, the children's Saturday morning matinee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, they used to show a cowboy film, short Mickey Mouse film, Donald Duck, and it was a very pleasant experience. And it was only costing about 3p to go in, but it was about a mile and a half to the cinema, which was in the Regal Gold Screen. What attracted me to the world of effects? Well, I don't really know, because it just somehow I seem to get pushed in eventually. But I'll just divert for a minute. One of the things you've got to remember in that period, there was no television. Your playground was just the outside. We played a lot more outside. There was no iPads, no smartphones, thank goodness.
Yes.
And we enjoyed life, but a much more simple life. Radio, we had the home service and the light program. That's all we had. We used to do, if you could get Radio Luxembourg, you did, because that was the American Forces Network. And we got Glenn Miller and so forth. But what affected me to sound effects? Well, I had a paper round when I was 13 years old. You had to get the permission to do a paper round. And I just about, the war was still on, but it was a quiet period. The sirens hadn't given the all clear, but I was out there delivering papers. And but on one occasion, my father's, I don't know how he did it, we spent an evening at the Queen's Cinema, Cricklewood, in a projection box. And I was immediately taken with the sound coming from the speakers. And it was like I think the film was Don Amici and Alice Faye, two popular stars at the time, in down Argentina way. And I could hear this South American music coming through the speakers. And I thought, I was totally infatuated, and I loved it. And that started me off. I don't know why the management offered me a part-time job, but I found myself doing 3 nights a week, and possibly a Saturday or Sunday, for 15 shillings a week. I mean, 75p by today's money, it's ridiculous really.
Yeah.
But I did get an extra 5 shillings a week for doing being the usher at the kids' programs on Saturday morning, which was great fun. And the kids were really out of hand at times, but yeah, it's enjoyable. Okay, continuing from working part-time, I don't know how I found the time to do my homework and work in the cinema. And it was also, everything was blacked out because of the war.
Yeah.
No street lights. Yeah, your houses were blacked out by the early evening. And my job coming home from school was to take the bedding over to the air raid shelter, because the sirens used to go regularly every night at about 6 o'clock. So when I left school at 15 with the idea of, I went full time as a pensionist. at the Queen's Cricklewood.
Yeah.
And I did a short course in projection at a Holborn school, and about 12 of us there, and 4 of us got picked out as they're likely to be chief projectionists in the future.
Yeah.
But one little story, on a Tuesday afternoon, we used to get a relief chief, and we were screening the film Sahara, Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
And this guy, he missed 4 changeovers. So with a blackout screen, I could not believe it. You know, this is the chief. And I found the work enjoyable. And Sunday show, we used to show old pictures, full of joints, and it had like a machine going through the gate, the film gate. And often we used to get breakdowns. But one of the things about in a projection box in those days, the film was very inflammable. So in no time you could have. We had one small fire, which didn't transgress into a big fire, fortunately. There were 6 of us working in the box, and we all got on board together. The second projectionist was the chief's wife, Mrs. Lawrence, and eventually my dad said to me, "Look, you're not going to stay in that job because it's a dead end, and you've got to get out of it."
Yeah.
So again, I don't know how it came about, but I next found myself working in Wardour Street at Pathy Newsreel as a general dog's body. I was only getting 30 shillings a week. Imagine. And I didn't learn much about editing. I was wrapping up rolls and rolls of black and white film. We produced 2 newsreels a week, and it was my job on a Monday morning and a Thursday morning to collect 5 newsreels and take them to the Ministry of Information in Russell Square and bring them back. And I watched the newsreels, but one of the interesting things about the newsreel was when peace was declared, I found myself on top of the pavilion, Piccadilly, looking down on all the crowds.
Yeah.
It was a tremendous feeling. I mean, thousands of people dancing and singing. And once the cameraman had finished the roll of film, I took it back to the labs and came back again. So I witnessed the whole of the celebrations.
Wow.
Which was quite something. One of the things I also witnessed at Pathy Newsreel was the discovery of the concentration camps in Poland and Germany, and the horrid films that were coming out from there. And everybody was aghast. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Gas chambers, undernourished people, skeletons, people sort of dying on barbed wire, unbelievable. But I saw that newsreel in the local cinema, and the cinema went absolutely in a hush. People just could not believe what they were seeing. Anyway, to continue my story at Pathy. While at Pathy, I was approached by the shop steward who worked in the labs. The labs was in the basement.
Yeah.
He said, "Vernon," he said, "how would you like to join the union?" I said, "What would I want to join the union for?" He said, "Well, who is it's Workers United sort of thing." And I said, "How much is it?" He said, "It's only £6 a week." I said, "Okay, put my name down." What I didn't realise then is that you could not get a job with the ACT unless you had a job.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have a job, you couldn't get into ACT. It was a catch-22 question.
Yeah.
And looking back now, it was the smartest move I ever made, because it led to bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
Come about November 45, I was made redundant. And I went to see ACT and I put my name on the unemployed list. And would you believe it? 3 weeks later, I got a telegram. I can't remember if it was from the studio or from ACT, to say report for an interview at Lion Grove Shepherd's Bush Studios to Brian Stewart, who was head of sound. Duly, I went for the interviews, and I found myself being offered a job of a second assistant editor under the sound department in those days, not the editorial,
Mm-hmm.
with a marvellous salary of 3 guineas a week. Hence my introduction to the feature business.
Yeah.
The first sound editor I worked with was called Eric Woods. But within a short time, Eric had a breakdown and Bob Wilson took over. The 3 films I worked on while at Shepherd's Bush was Caravan with Stuart Granger and Dennis Price. Tell me a minute. I can't think. Oh, The Root of All Evil
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
with Phyllis Calvert.
Yeah.
I think John McCullum. I don't know that one. Oh, The Magic Bow. Again with Stuart Granger.
Granger, yeah.
The Life of Paganini.
Mm-hmm.
But come January 1947, 1 year working at Lion Grove, I got my call-up papers conscription,
Right.
and I had to go to report to Peggate sometime late January
Mm-hmm.
to be kitted out.
Yeah.
So I went to Peggate to be kitted out, and showing a hut with 24 other men,
Mm-hmm.
all complete strangers,
Yeah.
all parts of England, Scots, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were shifted down to Yatesbury
Yeah.
in Wiltshire for 8 weeks basic training.
Mm-hmm.
During that time we got interviewed asking us what branch of the service we'd like to, what branch of the RAF we'd like to go into.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from the first choice I put photography unit, and the remaining choices we had either a military policeman
Mm-hmm.
or a cook or the RAF regiment.
Yeah.
Well, you only had to say the RAF regiment and you were in the RAF regiment. And so I found myself on the Yorkshire moors 10 weeks later
Mm-hmm.
at a camp called Norton.
Yeah.
It's just north of, I think it's north of York. And we were first placed on this ex-Canadian RAF drone,
Mm-hmm.
which was self-feeding at the time. You know, they had their own cookhouse and everything. But when we took it over, the cookhouse was a mile away. So every morning you had to, if you wanted breakfast, you were out and had to walk a mile in any type of weather to get a meal.
Yeah.
But before training started, you had to wait for the next contingent to start their training. So before we started actual training, we had 6 weeks to kill, which got a bit boring.
Mm.
But the camp conditions were very, very poor.
Mm.
But it was in the hot summer of 47.
Yeah.
And it was quite lovely being on the Yorkshire moors. But come the winter, they closed the camp down. We all went on 10 days leave, and we got shifted to Skipton-on-Swale, another ex-Canadian drone, with exactly the same conditions.
Right.
Food was poor, and even the showers were a mile away.
Right.
And we had 24 guys in the building.
Mm-hmm.
All we had for heating was a coke stove.
Mm.
The wash house was all frozen up from one tap.
Yeah.
We had these grey galvanised cans to wash in.
Mm.
Conditions were very poor. I don't think youngsters would stand it today.
No, probably not.
And shave, we used to shave in a mug full of water, hot boiling water, which we boiled up on the coke stove.
Right.
So life was quite hard, but we found the coal we had on the site was being pinched.
Mm.
So they started doing guard duties, guarding the coal at night time. And coal was quite in short supply at that time.
Yeah.
And the conditions were so bad, I even volunteered to go to Palestine. we refused. But eventually, we were embarked on the MV Devonshire in Liverpool, and we sailed off to Port Said. And it was a very, very rough voyage. You daren't look over the side of the ship below the main deck because people were being sick all the time. And the officers had the cabins on the ship, and we were right down below, sleeping in hammocks. Not very comfortable.
No.
Anyway, we arrived in Port Said. We disembarked, and we got into this railway carriages, which were parked on a siding, and we waited. I don't know why we waited, but during that time, all the sellers, the Egyptian sellers, came around the back of the. We had one of those type of American, I don't know what you call them, where you could stand on the platform outside the cabin.
Yeah.
And just as we were about to start, the train was putting out the siding. One of the beggars jumped up onto the platform and tried to wrench my friend's watch off his wrist.
Right.
And he gave him such a kick, he fell flying off the back of the carriage. The train journey took us to El Hamra, which I suppose was a couple of hours away. And there we were placed in transit, sleeping under canvas, four to a tent. The food was quite good, I have to say. The nights were very cold.
Yeah.
And we found when we had to do guard duties at night, and we were dressed as though we were in a cold winter's night in England.
Yeah.
Gloves, balaclava, great overcoat. It was bitterly cold, but we all took our turn. But eventually we got shifted to a place called Shalufa to do a 3-inch water course, 3 and 2-inch water course. And Shalufa was about 7 miles from Suez. And we were never allowed to go into Suez, always out of bounds, the troops.
Yeah.
Because the English, I have to say, were not very popular in Egypt.
No.
But one occasion, my friend Hugh and I, we decided to leave camp and walk across about half a mile to the Sweetwater Canal, which is a rather smelly Egyptian place, you know.
Yeah.
There were really hovels there. All these bullocks in floating in the water. While we were there, a gang of 18, 20-year-olds began to get too close to us, and we really got scared.
Yeah.
Because there had been murders along that canal of British soldiers. And I said to Hugh, "Come on, let's make a run for it." And we were quite scared at the time, but we got back safely to the camp.
Mm.
We did the 3-inch watercourse. We had so much ammunition left over from the war. We just fired the mortar bombs in the desert. It was good practice. We quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Discipline was pretty tight. We had a good cinema on the site. And one of the films I particularly remember was the Humphrey Bogart film, The Treasures of Sierra Madre. A big success at the time,
Yeah.
directed by John Huston, who I eventually worked with on The Man Would Be King in 1975.
Lovely.
From Chalupa, we got shifted down to Aden. So we boarded, I can't remember the name of the ship, but we boarded it in Suez, went down the Red Sea. I think it took 6 days to get to Aden. Well, Aden is now Yemen, I believe, part of Yemen.
Yeah.
But in those days it was a colonial territory, I think. And it used to be a coal bunkering place for ships passing through to Australia. At that time there were quite a few ships carrying immigrants to Australia, £10 a time. And one of the ships passing through was the Orion, and my mother knew one of the security guards on the ship, and I went aboard the Orion. You couldn't go aboard now on ships, as you know.
Yeah.
And I was in Aden for 14 months. While in Aden, the Ministry of Defence put another 3 months on my conscription time. So overall, I was going to do 2 years, 3 months. Aden was very hot, very barren, and all we did basically was riot duty.
Right.
Because there were troubles between the Jews and the Arabs in Aden, which I didn't experience any trouble when I was there. But we used to do 7 days guard duty in Crater. Crater is in the centre of a mountain, and it was the main part of the island, well, peninsula.
Yeah.
It used to get so hot, and we used to sleep outside. And I remember clearly, one night we got 3 rifles stolen. The arrows nipped in the sky. Of course, it's a great sin to lose your rifle.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to the guys. Anyway, I spent, it wasn't, we used to get a lot of leisure time, and we used to get a lorry to take us down to the swimming area, which was all wired off from the sea.
Yeah.
Because we used to get odd fishes in there, like stingrays. But there were no women there. It was all men.
Yeah.
There were about 50 WAFs there, but they weren't interested in the general members of the force, just the officers.
Yeah.
So after 14 months in Aden, in a very sticky climate, a lot of people got prickly heat, which is not very pleasant. And there were a lot of riot duties, but nothing serious took place.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember one occasion, my friend Hugh and I, we were sent to guard a water tower. We had our rifles, we had no ammunition, so if anybody were to attack us, we would be completely hopeless. It was so ridiculous. Anyway, after 40 months, my time was up. I sailed back to England, and when I got home, my family affairs were not great. My mother and father were on the verge of separation. The household was not particularly inviting, and I thought, what do I do now? because during my time in Aden, Lime Grove, Shepherd's Bush Studios closed.
Yeah.
And I was entitled to a year's reinstatement. Where to put me? I'd been working for rank. The union, I was the first of six assistants, including myself, to be released from the services. So they made a case for me. The union took up the case, and after 6 weeks, I got reinstated back at Denham Studios with an editor called Vera Campbell. The film was They Were Not Divided,
Yeah.
and directed by Terence Young. During the course of the production, Terence and Vera Campbell left the production. I don't know for what reason. Ralph Kempling took the film over. Do you know the name Ralph Kempling?
It does ring a bell, yes.
It was a big time. Well, he wasn't big time then. I took the film over, and I was seconded then to the sound department. Well, I was seconded to the editor, sound editor, Harry Miller. Well, Harry Miller was considered #1 sound editor in the film industry at that time. So it was a bit of luck for me. He was a great mentor. I learned a lot from Harry. And he was great at fitting dialogue, and I think that's where I got my skill from, Harry. In a roll of 1,000 feet, he would make it, and in those days we were working on optical sound, not magnetic.
Yeah.
Much more difficult working on optical. Harry would make as many as 300 cuts in a 1,000-foot reel to make the dialogue fit without you hearing it click all the time.
Yeah.
So you'd be on the joiner for a couple of hours, 3 hours, just joining away and blooping out all the space between the joins so it wouldn't bang or crack.
Yeah.
There was also a department in Den Labs called the blooping department, where 3 or 4 girls would sit all day putting a black ink across sparkle. Now, Mr. Luscombe was in charge of that department. He would sit all day in the theatre just listening to tracks. And the moment he heard a sparkle or crash, he would press a button and it would indicate on the film where they had to brush out the sound.
Right.
Boring job, as you can believe.
Yeah.
Well, what's the point? I've got to think of it. I mean, well, Harry was a great mentor. Eventually, the film, I think the film was mixed up. I didn't go in the theatre at all during dubbing. Can't remember. Eventually, the studio, after they were divided, the studio closed. But I still had about 3 months of my time to finish, so I used to go to work every day. There was still activity going on. And also, Den Labs was next to Denham Studios.
Yeah.
And Den Labs was fully operational. And they had their own editing facilities there, so there were people working in Den Labs. So then, when my time was up with Denham, I found myself out of work again. Who do I know? I got to know 1 or 2 people, but it was quite a worrying time because in the business it's not really what you know, it's who you know.
Who you know, yes.
Very much that way. So I spent at least 3 weeks at home contemplating what I was going to do. Then suddenly another telegram arrives. There's a vacancy at Shepherd's Studios on a film called Pandora and the Flying Dutchman. Second assistant. £8 a week, plus 50 pence travelling. And I was working with Ralph Kemplin. Roy Hyde was a second assistant, first assistant, and my friend Boyd Perkins was a second assistant, and I was going to be a second assistant on the film as well. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the Royal Command performance came out, and we had to get it ready. And the picture needed two or three more editors on the film because there was a lot of material to cut.
Yeah.
We brought on another sound editor, Win Ryder, another top man, and we worked long hours on that film. Al Lewin, the director, a lovely man. Before starting evening session work, we would go down to the Anchor at Shepperton and have a blowout meal, which he paid for.
Lovely.
And it was a jolly good team. I'll tell you who the extra editor was, Anne Coates. She was in the early stages of cutting. Of course, she went on to win the Oscar for Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh yes.
And Annie was doing quite well for herself apart from that. We worked long hours, as I just said. There was a hotel in the grounds of Shepperton Studios. A lovely studio, by say. I think the best studio. They had a beautiful lot where they used to do the exteriors.
Yeah.
And there was a fantastic set. I'm jumping the gun.
No, go on, Vernon.
A fantastic set of Oliver.
Yeah.
Which was about 1970. A set of London. A beautiful set. Having completed the film, it was submitted to the committee for selection to the Royal Command performance. After all that hard work, it was not selected. But a more appropriate picture, the committee thought, was the Mudlark, which became the royal film. So back to square one again. Harry left the film to go on to another production. There was a certain amount of recutting to do. Win Ryder took the film over, and I worked as Win's assistant. And a second piece of luck for me, working with the two top sound editors.
Yeah.
And I worked with Wind for about 2 months more on the film. Oh, during that film, also I met Ava Gardner, who was the lead in the film, and the leading man was James Mason. Before Al Lewin left the film, he gave everybody a present. Well, he wanted to give people a present, but he said he hadn't time to go shopping, but he presented me with a £10 cheque.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. A lovely man, and he enjoyed working with an English crew. So after Pandora and the Flying Dutchman, we got another film at Riverside Studios called The Galloping Major. Wynne was not an easy person to work with. He's a bit of a misery. And Jeff Foote was the editor. Nice guy, Jeff. And that was at Riverside Studios. I suppose it was about 3 months work. At that time, in my personal life, I'd left home and gone into digs.
Yeah.
My father offered me, he moved into another house, he offered me to go and live with him, but he was then asked my sister, who hadn't particularly got on well with over the years. And then she had 3 or 4 children.
Mm.
I thought, no way. So I went into digs. And I moved digs within 3 lots of digs within a short space of time. People could not accommodate the hours and the life I led in the film industry.
Mm.
Irregular hours, I was never in right time for meals. You virtually, if you go in the film industry, you give part of your life away, your personal life.
Yeah.
Even my fiancée at the time, she broke off the engagement. I said, well, you've got to understand, if we ever get together again, this is the sort of hours you've got to accept if we're eventually going to get married.
Mm.
So we eventually got to get together. And we married in 1952.
Oh, wonderful.
52. And it was a cold March the 29th day, and it was snowing. Would you believe it? And I was living in Finchley at the time, with a very bohemian type of family.
Mm.
And my mother also was a bit bohemian. I won't go into details, but it's nothing outlandish, but lived pretty freely.
Yeah, yeah.
Then, while I was up in Finchley, I did a short film, at the Gate Recording Theatre, also at the Rank Theatre.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was called Peppino and his Donkey.
Right.
It was shot in Rome, finished in England. I think the producer was Anthony Havert Allen. And we had a change of editors, and I worked alongside Jerry Anderson, the Jerry Anderson.
Yeah.
He hadn't got into Muppets at that stage, he was a sound editor.
Right, yeah.
And time was running short to get the film completed, to get into the mixing theatre. Apparently there was no other theatre available. And we worked 3 days and 2 nights straight off, with a slight rest in between.
Yeah.
I took a folding bed down so I could snatch an hour or so.
Yeah.
Jerry would do the work and I would follow him.
Mm-hmm.
And foolishly, they rang up ACT asking how we should be paid.
Mm.
You should not be working these hours. And he fined the senior members of the unit, editor and so forth, they were fined £15 each.
Right.
And the assistants were let off. So, but again, a joyful experience, hard work, but pleasant. The next stage of my career went one stage further. It was on Our Girl Friday. The editor was John Pomeroy.
Mm-hmm.
I met John before some previous productions. On that, I became what they call an assembly editor. I was fitting all the ADR that had been shot.
Mm-hmm.
It included Joan Collins,
Oh, lovely.
Kenneth, George Cole,
Let's go.
Kenneth Moore, and Robertson Hare.
Mm-hmm.
3 guys marooned with a pretty girl on arm. The basic story.
Yes.
It was quite fun.
Mm.
I don't remember too much about it.
Mm.
And it was short-lived.
Mm.
Following on from that, John was offered a film at Walton-on-Thames
Mm-hmm.
with Renowned Pictures. It was Dance Little Lady with Mai Zetling.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the male lead. Turbin Svengali and Safe Harbour, which we then moved to National Studios in Bournemouth.
Mm-hmm.
The last picture, I think it was called Safe Harbour, was a recut of a film that Godbog is shooting.
Right. Yeah.
John was asked to sort it out, and that was John McCullum. I don't think Goodyear was us, wasn't it? After working with John and the film Safe Harbour, business was very bad in the film world, and a lot of us were beginning to experience unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, I was offered a job at Burton Park Studios on documentaries and the odd feature. I was living in Edgware at the time.
Yeah.
My journey there was from Edgware to Morden, 26 underground stations,
Wow.
and a bus at the end.
Mm.
I worked on several documentaries, and I was asked for on 2 features that went into the studio, because I'd had this feature experience.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with editors, documentary editors, that didn't want to know sound,
Yeah.
so they let me get on with the sound. Bob Wilson, who I'd met at Shepherd's Bush, was doing one of the features. He used to go home on time. He said, if you want to carry on fitting all the stuff, do it. So I got more experience there. And during the course of my time there, I was offered a job on a film called Melba
Mm-hmm.
at Warden-on-Thames. Sam Spiegel was the producer. He was called S.P. Eagle in those days,
Right.
because I think he was not allowed to work in America somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, you only had to say you were a socialist and you were a subject of McCarthyism, not allowed to work in the States.
That's right.
And the director was Louis Milestone, a famous director for All Quiet on the Western Front,
Oh, yeah.
the original,
Mm-hmm.
which that was 1934, and he got an Oscar for it. Well, they were 2 light heavyweights.
Yeah.
And they looked like it as well, real bruisers.
Mm.
But I remember on one occasion they were shooting a ballet sequence in Wembley Studios. Oh, that's where I was working at the time. We got transferred from Warden-on-Thames to Wembley.
Yeah.
And that time I was working with another top sound editor, Les Hodgson.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I met Les in 1946 at Shepherd's Studios.
Right. Yeah.
So we knew of each other.
Mm.
And he was a good guy, good at a good sound editor, one of the best I think. And we were all assembled in the theatre Wembley Studios one evening. We were viewing Rushes, and there was a big row going on between Milestone and Spiegel. And all I can remember of the dialogue being, nor you, nor David Snelsnick, how to shoot my own pictures. It didn't end up in fisticuffs, unfortunately.
Mm.
But I remember that very clearly.
Yeah.
My time with Les was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was, all the music was shot on magnetic. And we cut on magnetic. The first film I'd ever cut on magnetic. Just the music.
Yeah.
The dialogue was still optical.
Mm-hmm.
And every joint was hand cut.
Right.
We had no splicers in those days.
Mm.
We had one head to roll the film backwards and forwards to find out where the modulations began.
Yeah.
And it was hard work.
Sounds it.
Took a long time. Eventually we got sound boxes, and more rollers, and eventually we got a magnetic joiner.
Mm.
One thing that was one of the downsides of magnetic, it could always pick up and be magnetized.
Mm.
And that produced a hiss on the track.
Right.
So every so often we had all the machinery demagnetized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In late 1955-56, I was offered a job by Mr. Vernon, who was taking charge of a foreign university department
Mhm.
at Rank.
Yeah.
The job was dubbing foreign films into English.
Yeah.
This gave me a lot of skill fitting English onto foreign lip movements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a bit of a boring job, but it was more fulfilling.
Yeah.
That lasted for about 18 months.
Mhm.
There wasn't a lot of work around the time.
Yeah.
I was walking down Water Street, and a person said, well, I bumped into one of my friends. He said, "You looking for a job?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, they want somebody in Enslow Street in London
Yeah.
to work for awry." I said, "What's awry?" I don't know, but get along to see it. I went along. I met Peter Syden, who was acting as an assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and Eric. Oh, he's an American. He was a pastor, at any rate,
Mhm.
American pastor.
Yeah.
And he was editing the film. So I went on the sound editor. One of the problems with the film was running at 24, but the sound was running at 25.
Right.
So it made slashing a bit out all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
make it sick. And that was because television ran at 25 frames a second.
Right.
That something to do with the pulsing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, they got a bit behind. First, let me tell you the story of how the film came about. Hannah Foss was the director. Now, this assembly, they were big in London at the time. I'll tell you about this if you want to.
Yeah. Please do.
Their thoughts on life were living honestly, absolute honesty, absolute purity, absolute love, and absolute unselfishness.
Mhm.
That was their code of living.
Very good.
Yeah. 3 Africans wrote this script for Freedom,
Mm.
and Hannah had 48 hours to prepare a shooting script. Their money was always from charity.
Mm.
I was the only person paid on the film,
Yeah.
eventually, when I joined them. And they took a unit, 20, 30 people out to Nigeria.
Mm.
And the stuff coming back was not bad. It was not covered well. If I'd been on the picture that ended from the beginning,
Mm.
I would have suggested a lot more coverage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, they were cutting the film, and they got a bit behind, and said, "Oh, Vernon, can you help out with the cutting?"
Mhm.
So I started to cut some sequences. But some days later or weeks later, I went through the sequence again. I thought, "This is not my cut."
Mm.
They'd been doing some work on my cut.
Oh.
So I didn't see them for a couple of days. This is what they like. And then Peter came in one day and said, Vernon, he said, we feel that all is not right with you. What's worrying you? I said, Peter, you can cut the film anybody you like, or I will do the sound for you. I said, well, I'm not touching the film anymore. You do what you want.
Yeah.
So I didn't see them again for a short time. And then Hannah Foss came down, took me out to lunch at the Gainsborough restaurant in Broadwood. He said, Vernon, he says, would you reconsider? I said, only on one condition. I get sole charge of the film, nobody else interferes. He said, I promise you. So Eric apologised. He said, oh, yeah. Eric eventually did the music, and Peter became my assistant. He was very good actually. But Peter is 40 years old.
Yeah.
Never worked in his life. He met this group at Oxford.
Yeah.
It was originally called the Oxford Group. And he lived off the cult. It was a cult, no doubt about it. Started by a band called Frank Bookman, I think in Boston.
Right.
Anyway, I went through, there was a lot of disused stuff. Because it was too blue, they hadn't used it. I said, that could be graded, all this stuff could be used. Anyway, I went through, I produced a rough cut, and we had a screening in Hanover Street. They owned a big house in town. They leased, I imagine they were leased. They leased the Westminster Theatre. They used to put plays on there. They leased a big house in Davis Street. A big house in Berkeley Square.
Yeah.
And we had this screening in a private theatre, Hanover Street. Well, you don't show rough cuts to people outside the business.
Yeah.
Get there, the theatre's full of these supporters of the group.
Ah.
And I thought, oh, I mean. So we ran the film. There was a South African. It wasn't in charge. Nobody was in charge. They worked as an ensemble. And at the end, the lights went up. Everybody started applauding. And then this South African got up and said, Vernon says, I think I'm a very modest person.
Yeah.
He turned around and said, Vernon says, thank you very much. He says, you've done a wonderful job. And we'd like to thank you all very much. We all lots of applause. And I became the kingpin then.
Yeah.
But then what followed that was the ADRing. We ADR'd the whole film. Because the Africans' knowledge of English had to be worked on a bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, during the filming, they invited me to go to their chateau in Switzerland,
Right.
which I went for about 3 or 4 days. And Peter came with me, my assistant. And he used to get up every morning at 5:30 and pray.
Yeah.
He was quite religious, Peter. And during that, I think they saw me a convert,
Right. Yes.
and they were slightly wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's a good way of living if you get everybody lives that standard, not individually.
Yeah, that's right.
And they used to put on film shows there with a message, not film shows, theatre shows with a message.
Yeah.
And afterwards, there was no alcohol. It was all apple juice or whatever. We'd gather in the restaurant. There was a mass of people there. Maybe 1,000. I just wish I could remember the name of this South African. Anyway, he said to me, we all sat around the room table. He said, Vernon, he says, do you believe in God?
Mm.
I said, well, superficially, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
He said, well, he speaks to you every day. Was it, in fact?
Mm.
He said, why did you write down your thoughts first thing in the morning?
Yeah.
And that's God's guidance.
Right. Mm.
He gave me a pencil and a little book.
Yeah.
But I was never that way inclined. My wife thought I got a bit self-righteous half the time.
Mm.
And she said, don't bring that stuff home here. But when we finished the film completely, I was invited to the premiere.
Mm.
Although the film had a Hollywood premiere.
Yeah.
And there was lots of praise for it.
Mm.
I think people were just being kind. I mean, it was not a brilliant film. It probably carried the message what they wanted, but it was not that brilliant film. And had a Hollywood premiere, and there was an artist, a theatre artist called Wee Georgie Wood. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
No, afraid not.
He used to play the part of a child.
Mm.
Well, he wrote me a very nice letter saying what a wonderful job I'd done and so forth. I've still got a letter somewhere.
Lovely.
But they're full of praise. I couldn't do anything wrong. You know. At the end of it, Hannah and his family were quite wealthy, and they had a hotel near Bournemouth. And when all was finished, I said, my wife and myself, and my youngest then, on a holiday of 10 days. But I wish I'd been from the start. I think it would have been a different picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Following the rough cut, we then needed to ADR all the voices because basically Africans' knowledge of English, some were good and some were bad. So we had to work on that a bit. And we had one difficulty in getting Mrs. Mutanda. Mrs. Mutanda. I think. At any rate, I said, well, we could use one of the other women's voices for her. The sequences are that much apart.
Yeah.
They were only different. Well, can we do that? I said, yeah. He said, well, we need quiet time to make a decision. I said, no quiet time. You're paying X number of pounds an hour. Let's get on with it.
Yeah.
So, you know, but they were like that. The music was also done at the Gate Recording Theatre. But anyway, how we get back to the ADR work? They brought all these people over from Nigeria to do the ADR and accommodated them. And I have to say, they did an excellent job. They seemed to learn English parrot fashion and almost can repeat word for word and get sync quite easily. That was my experience. And I think that's it really. In May 1958, I saw an advert in the Kiddie Weekly for a film editor required for the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting in Kaduna, northern Nigeria. So I applied for the job, not telling my wife, and eventually I got a letter back asking me for an interview. I still didn't tell my wife I was going for the interview. I just wanted to go. I wanted to see a bit more of the world. And there were 4 people on the board. There was 2 film people and 2 people from I imagine the colonial agents.
Mm-hmm.
And the first question they asked me, had I got the pioneering spirit? I said, well, I probably have, but I don't know quite what you mean at this stage.
Yeah. Mm.
And they asked me several questions. And one of the last questions they asked me, what sort of salary would you want?
Mm.
I said, top. Oh, we don't normally pay top salaries on first tours.
Yeah.
I said, well, you see what I've been earning.
Mm.
I said, unless you're prepared, we might as well forget it here and now.
Yeah.
So this, I heard nothing for literally months.
Mm.
And then a letter came saying, the Northern Nigeria have agreed to your salary, top salary. And the conditions of employment were very, very good.
Mm.
You know, for every week, every month I spent out there, I got a week's leave on full salary and expenses. And eventually I sailed out to Nigeria on the MV Oriole. I think it must have been from Liverpool, in August 58. Arriving about 14, 16 years later in Apapa, but stopping en route in Las Palmas and Accra, which I'd never been to before, so it was a wonderful experience. When I got to Apapa, the government agent, I'm just thinking of somebody else.
Yeah.
The government agent approached me, and I had a lot of luggage, and I was carrying a 4'6" cube. It was a box, wooden box,
Yeah.
with all the children, baby's pram,
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
But there's a story before that. Can I go back?
Yes, please do.
Prior to going out, I had to get packed. And my wife didn't want to go. I'm not going to all those mud huts. I said, they tell me Kaduna is like Tunbridge Wells. They're a good part of Tunbridge Wells.
Yes.
And it's not a bad climate. Anyway, she agreed to go. In the meantime, we had to get packed up. A friend of mine worked at a local factory and arranged for this 4'6" cubed box to be dumped in my front garden. When I saw 4'6" cubed, I thought, it's never going to get there. Anyway, I packed it up. And we had a railway junction at Edgware at the time. I don't know where it disappeared to. And I phoned them to come and collect it. And it weighed 400 weight. And the limit normally is 200 weight.
Yeah.
So I was told. So I had a phone call later saying, this is never going to reach Nigeria. It's moving left to right about a foot. But they very kindly tied everything up for me on the loop. It eventually shipped. And it arrived in Accra, Apapa. You could move it like this. I was put into a hotel just for the night, and the following day I caught the train to Kaduna. It's a long journey. And the government coastal agent looked after all the luggage. The journey took 28 and a half hours. It was a single rail. Nothing but wasteland for half the journey. Obviously with these termite mounds. But they tell me it was home for snakes. And the only stop was at Minna, about halfway the journey. And adjoining me in my sleeper was another ex-pat. And the steward, time for afternoon eats, and the steward brought in this plate of grapefruit. And my fellow occupant said, I wouldn't eat that. Said he was been touching it. He's an old timer. But I noticed on his arm, it was all flesh taken out.
Yeah.
And I said, what's that? He said, well, I work for the water people here, and that's from, I think he said Filaria. It's a river buck
Oh wow.
that gets to you. Anyway, that was a cheerful start.
Yes.
I arrived at Kaduna at dusk, and all the unit were waiting for me on the platform. And the chief information officer had arranged for a barbecue in his house. The garden was all lit up with these candles in little, what used to be tins of food. Small can. All the crickets were, cicadas were buzzing away, and it was lovely and warm. You know, it was a good reception. I was happy with it. You know. I was then put into the rest house. I think I shared a room with 2 other people. And the following day, I went to look at where I was going to work. Well, a cutting room, with concrete floors,
Yeah.
horrible wooden benches. You're supposed to be in a dust-proof room with lovely benches. And all I had was a little Acme pull through, 16 mil. I think we had a 16 mil Acme at the time.
Yeah.
Seem to remember that. But conditions were not good. I wasn't feeling homesick, but I got a bit bored with the work. It was even worse than I expected, really.
Right.
But after 6 weeks, my wife came out, and the only accommodation available at that time was quite a large flat, a ground floor flat. And my wife was not too happy about that. But eventually one of the senior members, there were about 5 of us on the senior staff, and one of them was leaving. He was a journalist, and I applied for his house, number 11, Elizabeth Road. It was a Muslim type house.
Yeah.
1 bedroom at the front and 3 bedrooms at the other end of the house.
Right. Yeah.
Quite a big compound. Lacking trees, that one. Pretty new house. And my children at that age, when Russell was 3 and Denise was 1. And they all thought I was mad taking kids out to Africa.
Yeah.
But living was quite pleasant up to a point. The only amusement was the local club, really, or making self-amusement, or socialising.
Yeah.
And gradually my wife began to settle. She had to be surprisingly began to enjoy life down there. And after each leave period, she began to look towards going back again.
Oh, lovely.
During the meantime, okay, you cut his hair down. We had then acquired a good building opposite the Ministry of Information. And the budget was made to get all new equipment. Joined us a lot. So we had a respectable living area at the time, you know. And the trouble was in northern Nigeria. I mean, I tell you, that northern Nigeria is 4 times bigger than England.
Oh, right.
Huge country.
Yeah.
I did quite a lot of travelling out there.
Mm.
And during the first year there, I think it's the first year, it must have been the first year, we got independence.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I've got a medal upstairs which you can photograph. It's the independence medal given to all the senior staff.
Oh, lovely.
I think it's not. I don't think it's gold. Probably brass or something.
Yeah.
And I'm wandering like mad here. What happened? Yeah. Oh, well, what happened with independence is there were 13 provinces in northern Nigeria.
Yeah.
And each province was represented at the service and the inauguration.
Yeah.
On the Kaduna Golf Club racecourse.
Yeah.
But during the build up to independence, they got there was a piece of ground just outside Kaduna, and it was called the Durbar ground.
Yeah.
And every afternoon we used to go out with the unit, shooting bits and pieces of all the provinces with their different dress. And I remember Zaria province, which was the nearest province to Kaduna, about 50 miles away. There was a guy there with cobras, scorpions, doing all the old tricks. You know, the old scorpion biting the tongue or something.
Oh, right.
All very interesting,
Yeah.
and all very noisy with their instruments.
Yeah.
It was quite something really. Princess Alexander came out for the inauguration.
Yeah.
She was going by air, but Ernest Zeri, the cameraman, and I were going down, travelling by road. I'll give you the name later on. The first place we drove to, halfway down to Kaduna, begins with a B. I can't remember the name, but that was her sort of first stop. And then overnight we had to drive 300-400 miles to Sokoto, the old capital. Well, when I first went to Sokoto, it was like going back 3 or 4 centuries. It was really back in times. All dirt road. The only part of the main Lagos to Kaduna road was from Ilorin, which is 100 miles from going north from Lagos. Lagos is not now the capital. I can't remember what they call it now. It's up country somewhere.
Yeah.
That's a new capital, built specially. And I had, now one of the first things you acquire as you get to Nigeria is a car. And I bought a Ford Consul. Probably not the best car. The best car's reputation was a Peugeot 403. Go anywhere. Anyway, the car served me well. Over 6 years, including my leave period, I did 47,000 miles. Yes, arriving in Sokoto, some 400 miles away from our previous location, was a hard drive, all on dirt roads, almost unmade roads.
Yeah.
In time for the pageant, which was Princess Alexander was attending. Anyway, we got there on time, but my co-cameraman, he had broken down on the way. But eventually, I don't know how he got there, but he got there on time. And in the evening, it was a sad evening because we were all assembled. Well, we had drinks. it was dusk, and the garden was all lit again with these candles, and we all paraded down to the flag stand, and they were playing. The local band was playing a tune. I don't know if it was the English anthem or the Nigerian anthem, but as the band was playing, the flag, English flag was rolled down,
Right.
and the Nigerian flag went up.
Yeah.
It was I felt very sad at the time, but what can you do? It's life moves on.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds very emotional.
Yeah. I can't think what happened next. Anyway, I came home to England for a couple of months to edit all this stuff with the chopped for the Independent.
Yeah.
10-reeler, boring. And then they asked me to stay on a bit longer to dupe all the stuff I thought was good. It cost a fortune. And I did a 2-reel documentary at the same time.
Yeah.
I left my poor wife in Nigeria, a big mistake. But she got by. Well, we came home, 21, we did 21 months the first tour, overall.
Yeah.
So I was entitled to 21 weeks leave.
Very nice.
So during that time, I got a TV job, court marshal at Pinewood, looking after dialogues.
Yeah.
And then I got on to a King Brothers production at MGM called Go-Go.
Yeah.
But I had to leave the production because I was due to go back to Nigeria. And my wife came, we went back by ship. Did we? Yes, we did. Yes, we all went back by ship. But we didn't go by train to Kaduna, we flew up from Kaduna. So I was back in the rest house for a short period, and then I got allocated to another house nearer the town, what they established as a Lugard house. Well, Lord Lugard, I think, was the English representative in the early days. Lugard Hall was the parliamentary building, and they loved him, obviously. The Lugard house was very, very old, bit colonial, and in about an acre of garden. I have to laugh when I think about it. The story I tell, we had a huge mango tree growing in the front garden, and it was full of ants. And we used to get this guy selling vegetables coming to the house. This was during my absence, you know, I was working.
Yeah.
And he said, Madam, he says, could I please have the mangoes? And my wife said, well, you're welcome to them if you can get them.
Yeah.
So he goes towards the tree, starts picking the mangoes. And my wife said in minutes he was being chewed alive by these big red ants. But foolishly in the afternoon, I bought some petrol, half a gallon of petrol, spread it all around the tree, threw a match on, and ran. The tree went up in flames, but it unharmed, and the ants were still there when I thought, well, one of the big problems out there is ants.
Yeah.
And during the rainy season, that's the other thing, one of the biggest storms that I've ever seen was during my first tour in Nigeria. And I and my kids, we sat on the veranda just watching the lightning, continuous lightning, and the crashes and the thunder. I wish I had a recorder there. And the rain comes down. Oh, the rains are depressing. It rains for a period of about 3 months.
Wow.
And with it come flying ants, millions of them. So you have to keep the house closed at night time.
Yeah.
But the Africans look upon the old flying ants as a delicacy.
Oh.
And you'd find them sitting underneath the street lamps, the mainstream lamps. With the heat of the lamps would kill the ants. Their bodies would drop down, and they'd be in there with their tins picking up the dead bodies.
Oh.
I think they fry them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever try one?
That's fine. You often used to get snakes at that time as well.
Yeah.
On the roads, the hot roads.
Mm.
I came back from we sat down for lunch on one occasion. Lunch was at 2:30 every day. But John, our steward, I brought 3 people on the compound. We had a steward, a small boy, and a garden boy. You couldn't. The heat was too hot to do it yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, John came in about 20 minutes later. He says, "Master," he called me master. I see big snake for garden. I said, "Oh, come off it, John, you're late." No, serious. Anyway, I didn't really believe him. We went down swimming in the afternoon. And he came back, he says, "Look, master, how this big cobra with his head missing." He dug out his hole.
Yeah.
Took him a long time apparently. Yeah. But he was genuine.
Wow.
Didn't get too many snakes on the compound. Small ones. It's all part and parcel of living in Africa.
Oh yeah.
The second tour was quite interesting. No, I'll tell you one more story about the opening, the first tour.
Yeah.
During the early stages of my tour, they wanted me to go. They also expected me to use a camera. I'd never used a camera before in my life. I did a still camera.
Yeah.
And the African cameraman gave me a 2-hour tuition on the camera. I was using a 100-foot IMO. And we drove up to Kano to film the installation of the new Emir of Kano. Another full of pageantry. You know, the old, I don't know what they call it. Lots of drums banging and everything. Yeah. On the second tour, I was asked to go with the army for 3 weeks up country to seek quail bird sites. Apparently the quail birds are menace up there. They just devour the crops. And apparently it's a problem throughout Africa.
Yeah.
The quail birds. You know, like a small bird.
Yeah.
So we went up near Chad, right in Central Africa. We go into calling all these small villages. Have you seen any big mounds of bird crap? And usually it was negative.
Yeah.
But as you walk into the camp, people say, Baturi, white man. You know, because they don't see many people up there. Now this is the area now where all the terrorists are in Nigeria.
Right.
I'm trying to think of the name, begin with M. Gone again. I might try and look it up on the map. But the cameraman came from this area. But going around Lake Chad and wonderful experience, you know, it's with the army, sea rough. I enjoyed it. But the downside of that thing, I shot all this 16mm, edited it, it was about a 40-minute film.
Mm.
They wouldn't show it.
Oh.
Because they think it would be much too accurate. What happens with the birds, we found one site, about 1 million birds.
Yeah.
And what they did, they placed these drums of oil or some highly explosive liquid and placed it on a charge of dynamite. And as all the birds fly in over the evening at dusk, get all this noise. 1 million birds. They're ready to 1 million of this one. And suddenly a whole lot are blown up.
Yeah.
Dead silence after that.
Yes.
But the following day, any local people around, they come in and wait for us. You know, they count every metre, every 10 metres or something, try to assess the amount.
Oh,
And they reckon 1 million birds were killed in this one.
wow.
Yeah. And of course, as soon as we leave the site, all the locals get in to get their birds, food.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Yeah. But the film was never released or shown because it might have detrimental effects. You know, cruelty to birds and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, the perception of the
perception,
culture
yes.
and stuff, yeah.
But it was an interesting film.
Hmm.
I quite enjoyed it. The other good expedition we did was we went to the awry Fishing Festival, which is again right up north. Seeming rough. Took my steward boy up there. And in the morning we had the installation of the new emir, and the Prime Minister was there, Sir Ahmadu Bello. He got murdered eventually during the crisis out there.
Right.
Well, the first crisis. They killed the Dr. Zekaway, the Eastern Prime Minister, Tefewa Balewa, the Federal Prime Minister, and Ahmadu Bello. And I think they killed the Western President as well, Prime Minister.
Yeah.
But I can't think of his name. I've done well to remember those.
Very good, yes.
But in the afternoon, they had the annual fishing festival. Now, I've got it on 8mm somewhere. Reduced to 8mm.
Yeah.
And because that film was sent to England for editing. But in the afternoon, everybody's seated along the riverbank, all the dignitaries. The big drums start beating. And suddenly all these hundreds of fishermen came over the top of this hill, all carrying their nets, their long nets, handheld. And they fished for the next hour.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to fish this area for the whole year. And something I photographed myself. The heaviest fish is presented to the emir, and it weighed 112 pounds.
Wow.
There's a big whoppers there.
Yeah.
And of course, going back, we were staying at an old fort, a really old fort, and it was fish for dinner that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, fresh fish, lovely. Quite a sweet fish. What was it called? In English they call it the elephant fish.
Right.
They used to call our director of the unit by the African Nigerian name. Means elephant.
Right.
Because he used to charge around everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway. I'll just tell you one other story. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't supposed to go on this, but Ernest Zeri, the cameraman, and the African crew went up to a place called Dowra, right on the borders of Guinea.
Mhm.
I think it's Guinea. And the local emir was celebrating his 60th anniversary, an old boy.
Yeah.
And there was a big pageant taking place, like these other pageants.
Mm.
And afterwards, we got to interview, go in the palace, and interview. Adamu, my assistant, did the interview in his language, obviously.
Mm.
And it was quite an experience again. I don't think you can do these things now.
No.
And I can remember we were sleeping in these clay huts or clay buildings, slightly away from the town. And I had my steward with me again. And I had a bath in a rope bath in the middle of a field. I was absolutely, when I look back on these times, they're good times.
So what was the bath like in the field? Was it
Oh, it was quite solid.
really solid, but made out of ropes?
Yes.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he filled it all up with water. It's great if your own servant.
Mm.
But the reason I went up there was because Ernest somehow had a mental breakdown in Kano. And they said, oh, you've got to go up now. So I had sort of a couple of hours to get ready. And I motored to Kano, which is about 150 miles. And I met Ernest in the hospital, had a chat with him. And I just took his place, just looked after the unit. I didn't do any photographing. I was just there as in charge. I don't know where John Breen was. I think John Breen might have gone to television at this time. He was the director. He transferred to television. And that's me lot for Nigeria.
Perfect, lovely.
Right, from Kaduna, we went home, having completed 6 years, including leave time. Prior to leaving, Abdullahi's son, who eventually became Abdullahi Abu Bakr, used to come into my cutting rooms in the afternoon and say, Vernon, I know you'd like to come back again. I said, yes, pleasant, but I'm not coming back anymore. I said 6 years is long enough to be away from the English industry. So we set sail from Apapa, arriving in Liverpool. And I managed to pick up almost immediately. The first film I worked on when I got back was Half a Sixpence, down at Shepperton Studios with Tommy Still. It was only a fill-in job. And from there, I went on to Salt and Pepper, doing dialogues. And during that time, one of my editor friends said there was a job going in Italy on a film called The Midas Run. American editor, Fritz Steinkamp. So I was working on a film at the time. I won't mention the name. And it's a thing you never do is walk off a film. But I thought about it all weekend. I thought, yes, no. And Monday morning, I got a call from Fitz Steinkamp and said, Vern, love to have you. We've got to know by midday. Okay, Fritz, I'm coming. Good salary, good expenses, and good editor. So I gave my notice in. I won't use the name of the film. I made an enemy of the director, and I made an enemy of the editor, Jerry Hamlin. Jerry Hamlin's dead now, but he was a good editor. And I went off to Rome, where I spent the 5 following months. And a very happy time it was. We had American editor, Italian assistant. My assistant was Italian, female, pretty useless. And American secretary, and she was lovely. And the English producer was Raymond Strauss. The cast was Fred Astaire, playing the part of English diplomat. Richard Crenna and Anne Hayworth. A medium price film, but a very good team, a happy team to work for. We used to go out and have lunch every day at a spaghetti house, and used to eat out one in the evening. Yeah, it was good. Hard work.
Because would you have a chance to meet Fred Astaire and John Le Mesurier?
Yeah, we did ADR on didn't do ADR on Richard Crenna, but I didn't meet Richard Crenna. But Anne Haywood was nice. I can't remember. I know we ADR job.
Oh, John Le Mesurier. Well, forget that.
John Le Mesurier. Why do I find it hard to remember? And Fred was, by then, past his tap dancing days. We had a German actor as well. Can't remember his name. What was that actor? Anyway, very pleasant working out there. And I was a lot of Lyra.
Yeah.
Cat story, I'll tell you about that.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, before I cut, I just want to say.
I can't tell you this.
Oh, that's fair. We'll come back to that. But with Fred Astaire, obviously, you say was past his sort of best days. But did Fred Astaire ever tell you any interesting anecdotes that's worth mentioning?
No.
That's okay.
Often I went to dub Art Carney.
Oh yeah.
Do you know the name?
Yeah,
American
ring a
Radio.
bell. Yeah.
On Sunburn.
Yeah.
I wanted to say him as his lines.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the sequence was. He said, I can't do it. He said, I'm not a funny man. I have to be given funny lines to read.
Yeah, I think some communities
do
are
it.
like that. They need that.
And there are
20th
20th Century Fox Theatre. Come on out, you must be able to do something.
I think it's a bit like Morecambe Wise when they first started. The scripts weren't that good, so they weren't that good. But when they got the good writers and they built upon their double act, they came alive. So a lot of it's the writing. Yeah.
Who else did I do there? Art Carney? Can't remember. But we were still on loops at that stage.
So what is loops versus ADR?
Well, as opposed to rock and roll.
Yeah.
The loop came up upside down. I said, hey fella, what's going on? Oh, apologies. The second loop came out. I said, come on, you're supposed to be, I'm talking to Americans, they're very proud, quite proud.
Yeah, yes.
And that's me, the Englishman telling them. Anyway, it all got sorted out in the end. In 1978, another Roman venture. Terence Young, De Laurentiis production of the Valachi Papers, starring Charles Bronson and Joseph Wiseman as Chief Mappier. Is it Cap DiCaprio, is it?
DiCaprio, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Is it Cap DiCaprio? It means head captain or head.
Yeah, I think
Anyway,
that sounds right, yeah.
He played the part of Chief Mafia.
Yeah.
It was all hard work. It was quite hard work. Spent much time in the theatre. The sound from the floor, stage floor, was pretty poor. Very noisy. and it meant doing, I would think, at least 50% of the film.
Mhm.
And when I handed Terence Young a script of what we had to do, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I said, what needs doing, Clarence, for universal purposes. You know, the sound would not be acceptable. My third trip in Rome was a John Huston film.
Mhm. Yeah.
I was doing the Foley's. It was called A Walk with Love and Death, which starred his daughter.
Yeah.
I have a copy of it on DVD, but whether it was ever released, I have no idea. It was a short phrase.
Yeah.
I think of about 6 weeks. But I worked with a very good man called Signor Cacciotolo. He was very good making sound effects in the theatre. And I think I learned quite a lot from him, even though I was very experienced myself. He did a lot more with his hands and his feet than we did.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. There was a mob of about 300 people coming over a hill. He had these sand trays in front of him, and all he did was this on the tray.
Right.
And I think we made 2 tracks of it.
Yeah.
And there was 300 people coming over here. It was believable. So I learned quite a lot from him. Oh, one lesson I learned on Midas Run.
Yeah.
The assistant, they used a Messerschmitt 109 as part of the hoist they did.
Yeah.
All was used in it. So I made a great effort to get Messerschmitt tracks. Now, is that going to pick up that rate?
No, I think we should be okay. Should be fine.
During the cutting stage, the assistant put in the dive bomber effect, which was very effective.
Yeah.
So I replaced all these dive bomber effects with genuine Messerschmitt tracks.
Right.
It lost it.
No. Yeah.
It was no longer convincing.
Yeah.
The dive, they said, what happened to the dive? What happened to the original tracks? I said, well, everybody knows it's a German dive bomber. We don't care, put it back. So we replaced all the Messerschmitt tracks. It taught me a lesson.
Yeah.
I very seldom use the right noise for the right thing.
Yeah.
I tend to exaggerate noise if I can.
Yeah.
More specific.
That was quite similar to a story that Norman told me actually when he was doing one of the Bond films.
Yeah.
He one of his sound recordists were out there filming these powerboats, and he was awfully pleased with the recording he got. And when he got back to Norman, the sound was far too clean. It was just, and he thought, no, we need these sort of down dirty, and he had to obviously replace the actual sound with something more interesting.
That taught me a big lesson, I must say. Right.
Yeah.
I think I finished with Walk with Love and Death. Nothing to report other than that. I know I was staying in, I just tell you where I was staying. I was staying in a studio flat belonging to a American lady that went off home for a short spell. One of my friends knew this Spanish. Les Hodgson was the WA. Yeah, we were quite friendly. I'm friends with Les, often working with him. Yeah. And he rang me up one night. He knew this girl had gone to America. He rang me up. It was a great mimic. What are you doing in my wife's flat? I said, well, I'm renting it. You haven't been to answer my question. What are you doing in there? How do you know my wife? And he kept this up for about 10 minutes. He said, you and I should get together and discuss this. So after the conversation, I rang a friend, Barbara, an American friend of mine out there. I said, Barbara, I said, just a funny call from Kathleen's husband. And told her about the call. She said, well, that's strange, she said, because he noticed you going to America. He was an editor of the Figaro paper. I think a Figaro. And I thought, oh yeah, this old Les for doing the old trick on me. But it had me worried for the moment. I said, well, he's got a point, what am I doing in that flat? But it was a lovely little studio flat. Its own rooftop garden, looking down on the view of the Corso. But it was winter.
Yeah.
It was quite bloody cold.
Yeah.
Another stint in Rome was a film called The Salamandra. And the editor was the first assistant editor of Midas Run, Italian.
Yeah.
The director was Peter Zinner, who was an American film editor. I think this may be his first film. It was a simple film. Not much to report it really. It went quite smoothly. I think we finished it in Chidistar.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I worked in three studios in Rome. It was Chidistar, Roma, and the International Recording Temple. All quite good places.
Yeah.
The final trip in Rome started in Madrid. I went to do a film called Hundra.
Yeah.
Again in 1977, Rome again. I was employed as dialogue sound editor on George Cosmatos' production, Cassandra Crossing. A big production, and it had some big stars, including Sophie Loren, Ava Gardner, Richard Harris, I knew it was O.J. Simpson,
Oh right. Yes.
which is surprising, and Martin Sheen.
Martin. Yeah.
And the guy that used to teach people in New York, a method actor. I can't remember his name. He played the part of the, I think, railway porter on the train. Yeah. Anyway, I found George very rude and difficult.
Yeah.
And I pulled him up about it on one occasion. He was rollicking an assistant for some sort of behaviour.
Yeah.
By that time I was a bit fed up with the picture. I fed up with the attitude. And after he'd finished talking to the assistant, Italian assistant, I said, talking his attitudes, George, I don't like yours. What do you mean? What do you mean? I said, well, you treat everyone like shit. I say good morning to you. You don't say good morning, you just grunt. I'm not feeling well. Yeah, I've had malaria. And he walked out of the room.
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to fire me. But at that stage, I got past caring really.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I just, there's no need for rudeness on the film.
Not at all.
You work as a team, but he treated everybody the same. Yeah. And Colin suffered with him.
All right. Yeah.
Did not tell you about it.
No, I think you did.
Escape to Athena,
Right. Yeah.
because George was doing that. And apparently he gave Colin a rough time, and the rest of the crew threatened to walk out of the film
All right.
unless Pan Martin apologised to Colin.
Wow.
I think Pan Martin's dead now, so.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, he started off well. He did Massacre in Rome,
Yeah.
which was not a bad film, and big stars. I don't know what his second film was. And Cassandra Crossley was her third big film. He was an ex-graduate from some film school, London Film School. And I ought to be very grateful for getting top there to just to work with him. I never understood the attitude.
No.
I never understand anybody's attitude of the film, getting annoyed.
Yeah.
I think it was more the old timers, you know, big egos. You know. Anyway, the other person was Richard Harris.
Yes. Yeah.
Richard does. Now, I ADR'd with Ava Gardner
Mhm.
and Richard Harris.
Yeah.
And I think OG, we did a couple of loops on him.
Mm.
But Ava was then coming to the end of her time.
Yeah.
And she was a bit of an alcoholic.
Right.
And I remember her saying to me, she said, I hate doing this. And she says, please help me, please help me. I said, you'll be all right. Yeah. No, it's just kind of encouraging. Well, interestingly, the session with Richard, myself and my assistant, who was my assistant? I can't remember. Anyway, we were working internationally, we were working at Chita, but we were doing the ADR International in that evening. So we went down for a drink about 6 o'clock to wait for the production manager, director, and Richard. And the production manager came in and said, oh, he said, oh, Richard's in a terrible mood. Oh, it's going to be hell tonight. Anyway, we started with Richard. Fine. He was obviously looking at me as opposed to George. He had no time for George. And he only just got married. He had after a certain time, he was very good. No problem with him at all. He said, how many more loops, Vernon? I said, okay, I said, 10. He said, I'm not doing more than 10. He said, I've got a lovely lady waiting for me at my hotel room, and I'm leaving after 10 loops. And it continued in that mood. I don't remember any instance with him at all. And George sat there. Now, with Sophie Loren,
Yes.
Les said her English isn't very good. Now, she's a big artist. I said, well, I'm not going to direct her. I said, because my English is not good enough to know what she's doing wrong and to explain to her what she's doing wrong.
Yeah.
And George cowed out of it. He wouldn't do it. So Les was left to direct her. And she questioned every loop she did. And Les was able to explain that her English wasn't quite right. But I said to Les one time, I said, she's Italian speaking English. I understand it perfectly. But she was no trouble, it went through smoothly. We dubbed, I can't remember what we dubbed. I think it was a Chili's time. And George was sitting there. George was a terrible smoker. Wherever he went, he lit 1,000 dog ends. So untidy. So, in the theatre, he started coughing. He smoked 8 packs a day, cigarettes a day.
Wow.
But only half smoked. And he started coughing away there quite badly, and Les said, George, you've got to go up smoking. I said, no, George, you can't go up smoking. Well, why? I said, because you're going to let too many people out of work, clear up after you. And that didn't go down very well. But that time, you know, I could be rude to him.
Yeah, yeah.
I got over the hurdle.
Yeah.
We left quite amicably. I took him out to lunch. But I think he did private again. But I'm surprised Colin didn't tell you about it.
No, you didn't go into that one, no.
Well, maybe a bit more cautious than I. But I think George died sometime with it. And one more in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
In probably about 1980, I went to Madrid.
Yeah.
I had a phone call. A film called Hundra. Employed as a sound editor. Not particularly a sound editor, but all I did was the dialogues.
Mm.
But it was one of those barbarian films.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, mate?
Yes.
And it was, yeah, and the Italian was cutting it, and he'd recommended me for the job.
Mm.
And he was our assistant in Rome, on the Midas run. And my first reaction, I said, why do you bring me out to do this rubbish? He said, enjoy yourself, Vern. So, I didn't enjoy myself. The first grumble I had was over money. I'd been there 6 weeks and no pay or expenses going forward
Right.
for my hotel. So I had to go, I can't remember his name. It is. He said, well, get on to, I won't mention names. So I got onto the producer. I said, I'm leaving the names out. And I said, what about my money? I've not received anything for the last 6 weeks. Who put you up to it? I said, nobody's put me up to it. Is that's words?
Yeah.
He said, you'll be paid. I know, you'll be paid. I said, well, I hope I do, because I'm not here on a charity run. So I got paid. So that put me off on a bad spot with him.
Mm.
And then we started ADR. And I spent a long time with two of the main leads. Their English was not very good. And they should have been revoiced.
Yeah.
But it's a low budget picture. And I worked. Alright, I had to accept what was finally given, you know. I mean, the artists don't want to do it because they lose interest after time. Then he came on to the leading lady. That lead lady was lovely. She was like Marilyn Monroe. And she was happy, cheerful. And she was the girlfriend of the director.
Okay.
I won't mention her name.
Yeah.
And she was good at what she did. No problem. What could do. But it came to a big fight. The basic theme of the story was she's the hero or the leader of this, I suppose, all-women group, village.
Yeah.
And she goes out riding one day. She has a big white horse. And in the meantime, the barbarians raid the town and kill them all. He comes back to find everybody dead. And she then sets off to find a large barbarian to screw her. And start the village off again. Silly story. But that was it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but she finds this big barbarian and invites him into the hut. He starts making love. But he's a bit rough with her. And it turned into a fight. Well, she couldn't scream and she couldn't do the old gulp when he hit her in the stomach. She said to me, hit me hard, Vernon. I said, I can't do that. Hit me in the stomach. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I said, I'll tell you what I will do. I'll put my arms around you. And every time I hit you, I'm going to pull your stomach in hard and make you yelp. And it all worked.
Oh, good, good.
But it took a long time.
Yeah.
The outcome of that was in the afternoon. We got the 7-foot giant, and he couldn't scream or run either. And you imagine this guy putting his stomach in. Oh, I'm ready. What am I doing? Crazy, absolutely crazy. And, anyway, cut that story long and short, finished ADR. We were mixing in Rome. And the director and the producer went off to Rome. We were still not, we were well behind pay again. Oh, during the course of the emphasis, he said, the producer said to me, "Vernon, do you normally do all this sort of ADR work on the film?" I said, "No." But I said, the original sound is not usable. Again, I got very close to being fired. I said, the recordist was the girlfriend of the director. I didn't tell you more. She obviously inexperienced. I don't know. The sound was pretty awful. So anyway, getting on to the story. I said to my assistant, a female, she's a nice girl. I said, as of lunchtime today, we no longer work for this company. We're 6 weeks behind again, and no work is leaving. I've done certain things to certain tracks that would hold up the original recording in Rome. I mean, that was a general policy if you did get paid. And I went back to my hotel. She went home. I was expecting the director in the afternoon coming from Rome. I don't know, can't remember what for. Anyway, he was at the studio. He said, he rang the hotel. I said, "Vernon," he said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in my hotel room." "What are you doing?" I said, I'm not working for the company anymore." "Oh, that's pretty unprofessional, isn't it?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm always on about money. Anyway, have words with Rome. So I rang Rome. And he said, "Please, Vernon, help me. He said, "I need your help." I said, "George, you don't help yourself." Right, about midday that day, we got paid our money. We're back on the film again. And I went to the airport and flew to Rome. My assistant finished, so I was on my own. The Italian airport, I can't remember the name of the Italian airport. Don't know why. Anyway, arriving at the Italian airport in Rome, the Italian airport, the producer and the director waited to greet me. The reception was a bit cool.
Right, yes.
But they plugged me in a hotel, and the following day we started dubbing. And that went through. He did a bit of a moan about the voices. I said, well, or in the meantime, what I didn't tell you is the American director, I don't know how, I got off with some loops and revoiced the stuff in America with American artists.
Right.
Didn't tell me he was going to do it. So I had to fit that up. I don't know what we used in the end. I imagine we used the American voices. But American voices are not right on a European film.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Better use an English voice. Anyway, that went through. After the session, he invited everybody to the bar for a drink. Not me. And I said, I've done everything I can to make this film successful for you. And I said, that's the other thing. I went, don't talk to you now. Come to my hotel after. I said, I'll see you at the hotel. So I went up to the hotel. He bought me a drink, but he had to have the director with him. I think he was frightened. I thought, no idea. Anyway, he had to go up and he said, call yourself an English teacher. You're not English. I said, I've never claimed I was English teacher. I'm an English sound teacher. There's a great deal of difference. Oh, yeah. He still owed me 2 weeks' money. And I thought, well, what do I know about this 2 weeks' money? I could have stolen temporarily the mixed tracks and make him do it again.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, that would end up in the River Tiber. So I thought better of it, and I left it there. End of that session.
Just before we finish, Vernon, I just wanted to ask if you remember working with Joseph Wiseman.
Oh, I did a short spell in the theatre. He was very good at his sync. And such a pleasant man. It was unbelievable. And when Terence went out the studio, I think I mentioned Terence left the studio.
Yes.
He said, we don't need him in here anyway, do we? I thought, well, that's a compliment. So we got on well without him.
Yeah.
I often feel, in some ways, I was much better. This may sound big-headed, but I was much better in the theatre with some directors. I was quickly able to explain what the artist was doing wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, normally it wasn't because of performance, it was because of synchronisation.
Yeah.
And they need to go, tell me where I'm going wrong. I said, well, make this word shorter. Make the S shorter. Things like that. But it was an art in cutting dialogue.
Yeah.
There's no question. I mean, you could slash it where you think it fits, but you see the result, or you hear the result. No, I had a good training. 3 good people taught me, and I'm thankful for that. 1970 saw me back at Twickenham Studios on a film called Harry Calder. Director was Bert Kennedy, an old MGM director who's had done a lot of Western films. It was a big cast, including Ernie Borgnine, Jack Elan, Sutter Martin, Racker Welch, Christopher Lee, Stephen Boyd, Robert Culp, and it was a damn good Western. The music was done by Ken Thorne, who wrote a terrific score. And but during the process of editing, once Jim Connock, the editor, got a rough cut, they asked me to lay music against the whole film. So I went to the West End, the HMV West End, selected all the best Western music I could find, and laid it against the film. When I saw it, I thought the music doesn't work because there was no theme going through. I don't think anybody else made any comments, but to me, it made the importance of a good theme running through a film to link the sequences together. During my time at Twickenham, during that period, I met an old flame. Well, when I say old flame, she was a very young flame. It was Jean Simmons. We went to school together. I used to sit next to her in class, and I knew she was in the business, and I'd seen her twice before at Pinewood, but many years apart. So I thought, I'll go and see Jean. So I went on the set. I think the set was a film called Dominic. And she was sitting there, it was during lunch break, playing the piano. And she looked up, she said, Vernon, come and sit down. And so we chatted about old times, and she said to me, we must go out for lunch. I said, anytime you're ready. So, but somehow I knew it wasn't going to happen, because the next thing would be in the headlines, Gene Simmons has got a new boyfriend. But it was true. I received a phone call in the cutting room saying, "Vernon, I'm very sorry, I can't make it today." So that was the end of it, and I've never heard of her since. I know she's died about 3 years ago, but she was a lovely girl, best looking girl at school. Sorry, I never married her, but Stuart Granger got there before me. That's one other incident on the that film was the last reel where they chased Ernie Baldwin to his old fort. It was all shot mute.
Yeah.
So one afternoon, Jerry Humphries, in charge of sound at Twickenham, and we did all the Foleys in 2 hours. The sync was okay, but it was good for the get the feel of the film.
Yeah.
And we spent some time making some good gunshots. And all in all, but I think I got a credit on the film, strangely enough.
Oh, right.
So now I think we'll move on to the next film.
Before you do that, do you remember meeting Ken Thorne, the composer?
Oh, Ken Thorne, he was a lovely bloke. Yeah. And he went to America and he became Andy, what's his name, singer.
Oh, Andy Williams?
He became Andy Williams, musical director. And that's the last I heard of him. But he was a great guy. He was good at what he did. And I've got full praise for him.
Yeah, great composer.
1973, I was back at Shepperton on The Wicker Man. They'd finished shooting, but they were still up on location. And I was given the script to read. Well, the script was a fantastic script. I couldn't put it down. I had to see the end of it. And I can't remember who wrote the script, but there's a well-known author. But the ending was horrific. The film came back. Eric Boyd Perkin was the editor, and he came back with the film a week after I'd started at Shepperton, and produced the first rough cut, which was 2 hours and 20 minutes long. And it ruined it for me. The film eventually was cut down to 1 hour, 110 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is about right. The director was Robin Hardy. And I think there'd been a little trouble on location. A bit of a conflict between the cameraman and Robin Hardy. So I'm told by Eric Boyd Perkin, the editor.
Yeah.
Anyway, Eric produced the first cut of about 220 minutes. Far too long. He put almost every shot that was shot in the picture. And I was very disappointed on the first cut, but gradually it improved. It came down to 110 minutes, and I thought it was not a bad little film. There was a slight conflict between the music man and the producers, I think, over the music. I think he wanted more up front, because there's quite a few songs, folk songs, featured in the film. I have to confess, I stayed out in the theatre. I thought, well, let them sort it out there. I just produced what was necessary, and I stayed out in the theatre. However, when the film was complete, I got my normal redundancy notice, or you just engaged in the film. Eric stayed on, and the producers became a little bit dissatisfied. They thought the film was too long, and it was a bit too horrific. Thought to be a little bit ahead of its time. Anyway, a copy was sent to an American horror director. I can't think of it. Maybe is it Landis? I can't remember.
John Carpenter, perhaps?
Yeah. And he produced his version.
Yeah.
And it lost the whole first 10 minutes, which was part of the film, really.
Yeah.
And I thought, poof, they've actually ruined the film again.
Mm.
But the producers seemed to be happy. But when the film came out, it died a death.
Yeah.
Fortunately, when I bought the DVD, they had put a long version all back together again,
Okay.
which made sense. And I understand now it's become a cult figure.
It has.
During the time working on the film, I had Edward Woodward in the theatre, and he looked at me for direction all the time. I don't know if he'd fallen out with the director or what, but there was one sequence at the end of the film where he's led up to the cliff. It's cliffside, and there's big wicker man in the background, and half of the Woodward's plead for his life was shot with a blimp camera, meaning it was soundproofed, and half was not. And he did, I must say, he did an excellent job on the theatre. But afterwards I said, Edward, if you get this situation again, just refuse to do it until the camera's blimped. Because it's painstaking to have to go all through again.
Yeah.
But I tell you, the horrendous part of the film is all the townspeople are all seeing summers are coming, and there's this poor guy led up to the huge wicker man with sheep, chickens and everything, being made a sacrifice. Yeah. And the last shot of the film is the wicker man falling over the cliff. It's quite horrendous, really, when you analyse it.
Yeah.
But it's a peculiar film, and I can understand why it's a cult film. You know, it's there's something in it that's different. And that's about all I've got to say about it.
It was Ken Thorne was the composer, I understand.
Oh no, Ken Thorne wasn't the composer.
Oh no, we were talking about Ken Thorne, weren't we? Earlier, weren't we?
That was the first.
Oh, that was, yes.
That was.
So we covered everything. So
no, I can't remember the name of the composer. No.
Okay, we'll cut.
But it was a name I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah. I'll have to look it up. So we'll cut there. So that's really good. 1 and action.
Moving forward to 1991, I got offered a job on Space Vampires, as it was called then. And the director was Toby Hooper, an American who's noted for his horror film, Chainsaw Massacre. The cast was Frank Finley, Peter Firth and Patrick Stewart, and the commander of the space vessel was Steve Rausberg, an American. The film was originally budgeted for £24 million, I think pounds, and eventually went to 30 million. For the first month on the film, I was threatened with an American sound editor, and I said to John Grove, the editor, if they replace me with, they won't replace me, but I'll be a second. I said, I'm leaving the film because this is my picture and I want to do it. John rough cut 3 sequences action sequences, and Tobe asked that I do a rough up on it. We spent the whole of, although we were working from EMI, we roughed up at Twickenham Studios on a weekend. And Robin McDonagh, who was doing the mixing, did a great job. And I thought, he can't not dislike this. So word came back from Toby that he was happy with what he saw. And I never heard any more about an American town as they're coming on. It was the longest film I ever worked on. 62 weeks. And there's a reason for that, because the film was completed. I can't remember exactly when the film was completed, but it was quite acceptable for what it was. But again, the producers didn't like the title, Space Vampires, and they changed it to Life Force. John had left the film to go on to Labyrinth. And one weekend, the producers, the Canon people, and the TriStar got together and hacked the film to pieces. They didn't like what they saw. And Tobe was almost in tears. He was coming into my room and said, "Vernon," he said, "they're ruining my picture. What can they do? Help me." I said, "What can I do?" So, anyway, the result was, again, we lost all the first 10 minutes of the film. It didn't make sense. When it was all the tracks were put in sync, we couldn't find a recording theatre to do a remix. Everywhere was busy at the time. So it was off to America. We packed all the stuff up, went to America, and we eventually dubbed the film at Todayero in Los Angeles. Toby was most unhappy with what he saw. All through the mix, he was sitting by my side and saying, "Oh, they've ruined the film, ruined the film." And when the film was released, that version, it died a death. It got poor reviews. But fortunately, when I bought the Blu-ray DVD, it was back to its full length. Not a first-class picture, but not a bad film. I understand now it's become a cult movie. During the post-production, I got we're going back now during the post-production period. That we had permission from what department? I can't. Construction, I suppose. That we could go and smash up this mansion house tube station set, shops, a very good set. The whole film was shot in EMI studios. All the main roads through had a facade of houses, and it was quite realistic. You know, all the action was taking place in just outside my cutting room with a new facade of it. Anyway, one evening, the editorial group went up to the lot and smashed up all the set, crashes, bangs, glass smashes, all required to put in the film. You know. The second episode I remember was one evening I called in a small crowd for the zombies running around the streets, and I got a couple of bottles of wine, or if not more like 5 or 6, and I got the artists, about 10, 12 people. I got them, 10 tanked up on wine. I said, now, I want you to put all this cotton wool in your mouth. He said, what? I said, because they're zombies. They've had the energy taken out of them. They're not humans. And the evening was hilarious. You know, the crowd fell into the mood, and it was one big laugh. Looking back on it now, I just think, no, that was great. Yeah, little incidents like that make life pleasurable in the business. The film was quite hard work, but I think I spent 8 weeks, 6 weeks at least in Los Angeles completing the dub. But I was very happy to see the full version back on the Blu-ray. Don't buy the theatrical version. Whilst in LA, Tobe Hooper invited myself and 2 other members of the editorial squad, but I was asked to do John and I were asked to do a little bit on the extras, so you'll find me on the extras of the DVD. Yeah. Before I got offered the job of Space Vampires, I was visiting EMI Studios, and John was, I popped in to see my friend Les Hodgson, who was editing. It wasn't a remake of Wizard of Oz, but it was connected with the Wizard of Oz. I don't know if you remember it.
It's like a Return to Oz, or
something like that, yeah.
A sequel, yeah.
And it was the American editor, sound editor, recordist, was directing.
Yeah.
And Les offered me a job on this production as a second dubbing editor. I said, I'm not interested in the second, I'll do it as a first. Anyway, working in the same block academy was my friend John Grover. He just started on Space Fighting Planet. So I went and saw him, and his first question to me was, do you like space films? I said, not particularly. He said, I'm not going to offer you the job then. So I said, well, what's it all about? And eventually I agreed to do it, you know, because it was work, something I hadn't done before, space film. But it was quite a challenge, and I enjoyed it, you know, basically. I had a lot of freedom making the effects. And that's the end of that.
Do you have any favourite effects that you remember, or was it?
Well, the stage 6 at EMI was big, and it was empty.
Yeah.
And we got some beautiful echoes, effects in there. Well, one thing I do remember is one of the special effects guys gave me a roll of cordite.
Right, yeah.
Which is dangerous stuff.
Yes.
And we hung up these strips of cordite on a rope and lit them. And it made a wonderful effect for the images that appeared. There's a sequence in there where the zombie lady comes to talk with the commander of the spaceship who's returned. And I didn't know what to do because it's a series of flashes.
Yeah.
And I just filled up with this effect. Yeah, it was quite a effect. And they were probably part of the flashes coming from the zombie spaceship when they were attacking London. Yeah. Probably a component helped it, but I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah,
but I do remember I filled up. I cut up a little length of this cordite and put it in a cigarette tin. Lit it, and then ran. The explosion. Oh, a little knowledge is very dangerous. Oh, it was a bang. I think the whole studio must have heard it around this studio. 1984, I was back at EMI again on Labyrinth, joining John Grover, the editor, and Matt Glenn, assistant. Director was Jim Henson, a lovely guy, easy to work with, and very positive of what he wanted to do. But he was very kind, very polite. In fact, I think one of the nicest directors I've worked for. Colin Miller, a sound editor, joined us shortly after myself, and he was to work with Jim in the theatre on the ADR. ADR, in case you don't know, means automatic dialogue replacement. And he was with Jim finding voices for the characters in the film, the puppets.
Yeah.
And from what I understand from Colin, it was a very good period for him in the theatre, a happy period, because a lot of fun testing the voices for the little squeaky little characters.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with the voices at all. My job was on the effects. The artists in Labyrinth, but David Bowie took the lead, and I think we did one evening with him. I can't really remember, but he was a pleasant enough person to work with. And I never worked with Jennifer Connelly. Most of her original sound was good, but what a fine young actress she was then. She was 14 years old when she joined the film, and she's done very well since. She's made some brilliant films since.
She has.
A very, very good actress. The rest, of course, in the film were all puppets, and we had quite a lot of fun making all the noises for them. The Labyrinth was 100% sound remake. The original sound, well, apart from the musical numbers, playbacks, were all guide track sounds or no sound at all. Because a lot of it was all puppetry work.
Yeah.
And spent considerable time in the effects theatre. I think overall was about 15 days. But some of the noises we had to make were quite, I suppose, inventive, really, because there was no original soundtrack. So everything you heard was made in the theatre. One of the sequences I was asked to do rough dub on was Hoggle going through the bog of stench. Everything's all bubbling going on, and Jim wanted all fart noises on the surround. He wasn't very precise in what he wanted at the time, so I just laid all these farts and burps all round and did a mix. But one of the farts I'd placed was just as this big figure, Ludo. He was about a 12-foot puppet.
Yeah.
He gets up. There's a terrific fart. And when we were mixing, rough mixing, Ray, can't remember his surname, he just couldn't stop laughing. Because everyone got the giggles in the theatre. But it wasn't what Jim wanted.
Yeah.
When he saw the thing, he said, no. He said, that's not what I want. He said, we want to keep it clean. I don't know, can't remember the exact word he used. It's film is for young people.
Yeah.
he said, can you make it more subliminal? And I made up a 1/4-inch tape of selected farts, and I called it 101 Selected Farts. And one afternoon, Jim was in the theatre, production manager, John, the editor, and about 4 of us in there, listening to this 1/4-inch tape, and saying, well, number 5 was quite good. And I thought, at the end of the day, if you get home and you've got a young son, what have you been doing all Daddy? Oh, we've been selecting farts for a sequence. Anyway, the eventual dub, I mixed 6 fart loops. There were 6 farts on each loop, all going around at the same time, and 6 burp loops. And if you listen to it, it's all on the surrounds, but you have to listen. It's subliminal.
Yeah.
Jim seemed happy at that, but that was one occasion I found he didn't quite know what he wanted. So it was a matter of trial and error.
Yeah.
But no, I was happy with it in the end. Yes. If you listen to it, it's there.
I'll do that tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to have surround sound. A short time after the completion of Labyrinth, Jim Henson died. I don't know what the cause was, but he was sadly missed in the industry because he was a one-off for what he did. And I had the pleasure of working with him, which meant a lot to me. Yeah. This is one of the balls that David Bowie was juggling in one of the scenes in Labyrinth. And it was presented to me by Jim as a Christmas present, along with a full-size poster, which at the moment I can't find.
Did you want to just hold the ball up separately? Yeah, that's fine. And can you just separate the two? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's lovely.
Sorry, I'm not going to juggle with it.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, that was just so we could see it from the angles. That's perfect. Thank you, Vernon. That's lovely.
Do you want to do a close-up?
Oh yeah. I'll quickly do a little.
That's on Labyrinth.
Yeah. So if everybody see there, I'll just show the. I'll just sort of get it close to. That's there. Okay. So yeah, I think that'll be fine. So shall I put it back?
Yeah, put it there.
Yeah.
Following on from Labyrinth, John and Matt were invited to South Africa to edit a film titled Circles in the Forest. A South African production, all South African money, and John invited me, offered me the job of sound editor again. And the film was being shot in Knysna, a beautiful part of the Garden Route, and a lovely small town with its own little harbour, and the people were very, very kind to us. We had a lovely time there. Anyway, going back to first going in the film, I flew to Johannesburg, and from Johannesburg I called a local plane down to George, which was about an hour's drive, I suppose, from Knysna. And Knysna is about a 4 or 5 hour drive from Cape Town. I would like to add that this was a beautiful location, one of the nicest places I've ever been to. And it had a very old feel about it. And we spent many hours on the jetty. Matt and John used to go fishing. I didn't join them. And it was a fantastic location. Anyway, we'll get back and tell you a little bit about the production. John and Matt were at the George Airport to meet me, and we had a very pleasant drive back to Leicester. I was so impressed with the scenery surrounding, and it was obviously it was something to look forward to spending the next 6 weeks there. Our editing rooms were an old house right opposite the hotel in which we were staying. And there were still a further 6 weeks of shooting. But as John pointed out to me, the crew of mixed South Africans were much younger than a normal English crew. And John also pointed out to me, half of them were on a touch of the old coke. Needless to say, we never touched the stuff. Yeah, okay.
Did having a mixed crew make it more complicated, or?
No. The crew. Everybody did their job. It was a very happy crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had no complaints. I didn't do a lot with the shooting crew, but John came into contact with them more than me.
Yeah.
I was more of a backroom boy, preparing the tracks.
Because I imagine having that local knowledge to John was probably quite helpful, really, to have that.
Yeah, well, I don't think it did the menu jobs. I mean, there were a lot of, I say a lot. There was a mixture of Boers, original Boers there, and normal South Africans. I don't know how else to describe it really.
Yeah.
It was a happy unit. There was no problem with the unit at all. Yeah. The director of Circles of the Forest was a South African. I can't for the love of me remember his name. But one of the leading English artists was Vernon, who played the part of an aristocrat, not a very nice man, who bullied people, and he controlled the local timber industry. The period setting of the film was roughly late 1800s, 1880, and they used an old colonial built very large house called Forest Row, which you could go and stay and have a holiday there if you wanted. It was a nice location, way in the forest. Quite a lot of snakes around. The script was a little bit about the environment, saving the forestry and also the elephants from the hunters. There were apparently there were no trained elephants in South Africa. And the company imported 4 trained elephants from America with their American trainer. Unfortunately, one of the elephants died. And it was where I had to shoot quite a few effects. And the stench from the body, I didn't know why they didn't do something about it. You could smell 100 yards off. It was so foul.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the elephant died of. Later, during shooting effects, I spent 2 days with the elephants. I got some photographs that you include.
Lovely.
But they don't perform when you want them to. But I got all sorts of grunts and groans, but to get them to trumpet is very difficult. And the trainer said to me, the only way you may make them trumpet is to frighten them.
Right.
And I advise you to stay clear. Anyway, he got them to trumpet, and it was a loud trumpet. And of course my recorder was up to maximum. Totally overshot it. It was the only one I could record.
Yeah.
They didn't do it anymore. I got lots of grunts and groans. I got foot pads. Never walked behind an elephant. You never know what you might be covered in. And no, it was a pleasant 2 days. I must say I enjoyed the forest. It was so quiet, and we had to stop shooting occasionally, because you had these monkeys shrieking in the distance, which added quite an effect on the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So you say you can get a trumpet on. Did you
Oh
have
yeah.
to,
Well, I had to make
library?
use of library trumpets.
Library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not something you can order every day.
I wouldn't have thought so. No.
So I had to double up on a lot of them. I didn't want to use a lot of elephants because you never saw a lot of elephants, and somehow you never got the impression there were a lot of elephants around. But the local woodcutters were quite frightened of elephants.
Right.
And there was one elephant that, when he did the trumpet, they used to run. Several of the scenes in the film had to be shot in the town of Neisner. There are many. There was much architecture of that time, of that period, which was available for use. But of course, it had modern things surrounding it. So what they had to do, they laid all sand on the tarmac roads, dressed people in the period, produced an iron foundry where they could go and have their horses reshoot. And I have a picture of myself on a buggy of a single horse, recording horses' hooves.
Yeah.
Which again, it's available for the
Yeah,
show.
that'd be lovely.
Yeah. And the whole, and I think there were a few parking meters to take out. Anything that showed anything modern was taken out. And it was very realistic. I was very impressed with what they did. And the locals were happy to join in it as for crowding and that. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And we were very, very welcome. Most weekends we were free, and we spent much time travelling around, and especially on the beautiful beaches. The locals were very friendly, and several of them invited us for evening meals at their houses. As I've said previously, it's one of the most enjoyable locations I've ever been on. But all good things come to an end. At the end of shooting, there was a crew evening party, which is quite normal on film shoots. And the artist intermingled with the crew and the editing crew. And I think we were drinking martinis.
Very nice.
And the lead South African actor, I wish I could remember his name, he said, "Come on, this is what we need." And he's putting a little fork round the edge of the glass. It was a nice occasion. Of course, the weather there was beautiful. And my wife came out at the end of the shoot. No, the end of the film, completion of the film.
Yes.
And we looked around Neisner, thinking about we might buy a property. But at that time, the country seemed to be very unsettled.
Yeah.
We thought, no, we'll stay where we are. Well, finally, we had to move back to Joburg. So Matt and some of the crew packed all the gear up. And we moved to a new, well, not a new building, a refurbished building, about 30 kilometres outside the actual Joburg. We were each given a car, as the hotel, I think it was a Hilton, was in Joburg, so we had to drive to the new editing rooms every day. But we used our own cars. The trouble was, it was difficult to get. The nearest re-recording theatre was in the middle of Joburg. And one of the things I did while in Neisner, I recorded all the Foleys wild. And which means exactly what it says. So each night, I used to, when the film was cut, roughly cut, I used to go back into the editing room, go through a reel, identify every shot that wanted footsteps and effects on it. And we used to do one reel a day. And we used to shoot the effects. I had a sound man and an assistant. And we used to go up to Silver Creek. I can't remember quite, it's about maybe 20 miles away. And this was the place where the original gold rush took place.
All right. Yeah.
Yes, where they used to clear the water, break for the gold. And we used to take our lunch up there.
Yeah.
And there was a picnic area up there. And I must say that each day I looked forward to going up there. It was beautiful. But come to fit all the sound effects on the film was another story.
Yes.
I fitted every footstep on that film with stuff we shot. I was the one doing the footsteps. I was the one that had a skirt on for female footsteps, because I switched the skirts. Well, the trouble came, the distance between the new editing rooms and the re-recording studio. Normally you do it in a studio to picture. So then I asked for a transfer bay because I needed immediate. I couldn't keep going up, driving 30 miles or kilometres each time I wanted a replacement track. So they gave me a transfer bay. I did all my own transfers in the cutting room, everything I wanted onto 35 magnetic. And it took a long time fitting every footstep. John, in the meantime, looked after the ADR on the film. He and Matt looked after the ADR. And it worked out quite fine. I was trying to keep up with the theatre of the mix. I didn't have much say of what went on in the mix, because I was busy in the cutting room. Preparing the next reel all the time. So I was under quite a bit of pressure at the end. But it all worked out. At the end of the production, the South African producer held a party, or a dinner, for the whole crew that were around still. And he presented us all at the end of the session with a gold £1 rand.
Oh, right. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. which I don't know. I think at the time it was worth about £250.
Right.
And we all thought it was lovely because we all made speeches at the end thanking the crew.
Yeah.
At one point I missed out. While we were in Neisner, we were contacted by South African television, and John and I were photographed in the cutting rooms, talking to camera, and we were described as the Bond crew. And it was on Good Morning South Africa. Only 5 minutes each.
Yeah.
It was nice. Yes. Yeah. I've got it on video somewhere, but I wish I'd had it transferred to DVD.
It might be worth doing that at some point. Yeah.
But all my videos that I had are now backing my DVD shelves
Yeah.
because the DVDs sink into the shelves are slightly over large, yeah, for DVDs.
Yeah.
But I regret not having that at hand. Following South Africa, John and Matt flew to Mexico City for License to Kill. Although that wasn't the original title, it was called License to...
License revoked. License revoked.
That's right, it was called License Revoked.
Yeah.
But apparently the Americans didn't understand what revoked meant.
No.
You've heard about that?
I have, yes.
Yeah. And normally I don't join a film until about 4 weeks before the end of shooting. But they wanted me to go out at the commencement, or a week after the shoot. So I joined Matt and John in Mexico City about a month after, I suppose. Because my wife came out for a holiday in South Africa, so there was at least 2 weeks break there.
Yeah.
And I flew back to England. I remember going through customs. I think license to revoke. Filmmaking in England was getting expensive, and I think they thought that going to Mexico City it would be cheaper.
Yeah.
But I think the end result was it cost more.
Right.
For, I wouldn't say for obvious reasons, but
I see. Yeah.
I remember going through customs, and the film rep met me at the customs, and he asked me to wait for a minute. He went to buy a bottle of whiskey, and I just sailed through the customs, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, but John by this time had cut a couple of sequences, and one involved the bar fight, where Bond draws up in this lovely sailing vessel.
Yeah.
And I worked for at least a day on that, but we just couldn't get the sound that I knew John wanted. The facility, it was at Cherubuska Studios, and the facilities was just a small theatre, which would be probably quite normal for a dialogue picture.
Yeah.
But the effects couldn't blast them enough, and John liked everything full on. So I went and saw John. I said, "You're wasting your time here. You'll never be satisfied with what I can produce for you, or what the theatre could produce. They just haven't got the facilities." And he said, "Right," he said, "forget it. Just enjoy your time here. Make use of it." So whenever I had the chance, I went out recording effects for my own army, plus what was necessary for the film. One sequence I remember shooting sound effect on was when Bond is being pulled along by the seaplane. I thought, well, while I'm here I could shoot that. So I asked the production to organise the studio fire brigade, and on the lot was a big water tank. So we spread a sheet of plastic over it and hit the hose full on, making a lot of movement. I fitted it to the film and it worked perfectly. Yeah. But I think now already you could have done that in the theatre on a smaller scale, but with the technology around today, you could have made it sound much bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember doing the tanker chase at the end of License to Kill?
The
tanker chase at the end of License to Kill, and you...
Oh, yes. Well, I can do the pie cut. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
The tanker chase. The original rough cut was about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I took the first half, and Peter Musgrave, a very good sound editor, took the second half. And I think we took 3 days to do it because it was very quite complicated.
Yeah.
But it was a joy to do. I love doing it, those sort of things. And when we presented it to the theatre, John was head over heels. He said, "Oh man, everything worked." And there was no DCR.
Oh, CGI and...
No, it was all original stuff. All actually happened. And they shot some good effects for it, which I must say helped a lot.
Yeah.
That was great when I saw it. I thought, oh, that really works. Oh, but one point I want to make. When we were doing a rough dub, Robert Darby, Bond,
as
has a lighter.
Yeah.
And Darby's covered in petrol. But there was no. It wasn't Darby doing it. It was just a stunt man.
Yeah.
So I said to John, the mixer, John Haywood, very good mixer. So I said, "I'll do that." So I got up in front of the mic and did it. He said, "It's fine. Lovely." And I said, "No, I can do better." No, we'll stick with that. And it worked.
Yeah.
But the censors cut it. See by half.
Right, it's a bit too...
I mean, I don't know why they didn't leave it, because now you see scenes in films, you see a bloke burning,
Yeah.
they don't cut it in half.
Yeah.
So that was my performance score. But I was quite...
So it was the screams and stuff and things
Oh
you
yeah,
were doing.
I was quite good at doing screams and shouts, yes.
Yeah.
In Poland, I couldn't find English voices for the English parts.
Yeah.
So I did all the parts.
Oh right.
I
Yeah.
became
Yeah.
a hotel keeper, a policeman, a boxing promoter, ring promoter. All the small parts I did.
Yeah.
And one of the people said to me, "How do you do different voices?" I said, "I just think of a part." And it seems to work, yeah. And my singing was good. I should have become an actor, I think. I was only
Well, so you certainly a radio.
I used to, if any
and...
screams and shouts wanted, I did one line for Who Men Would Be King.
Oh yes, yes.
I think it was a sergeant at the soldier post on the border. I can't remember what I said. Oh, I did one thing on Labyrinth.
Yeah.
The voice for the giant on the gates. Who goes? And we had a machine. I did a low voice as possible.
Yeah.
And then we had a machine called a plumerism, which you could lower the frequency.
Yeah.
And they dropped the voice down a couple of shades, and that was used in the picture.
Very good. Yeah.
My only claim to fame.
Well, a good one. Yeah.
I think that's what. Oh, the tanker chase. Oh, I don't know what. I don't know the length of the tango chase in the end.
Well, it's got to be a good 10,
But-
12 minutes sort of.
But a good 10 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all good stuff.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, I enjoyed that film.
And
I enjoyed all the Bonds.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, Vernon, about Few Eyes Only.
One incident was ADR in Roger Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Roger was waiting in the theatre. I came in. We were waiting for John Glenn then, and I'd just come back from Poland, and I'd been skiing,
Mm.
and I'd fractured my leg, and it was in plaster.
Yeah.
He said, "What have you been doing?" I said, "I fractured my leg skiing."
Mm.
He said, "You're a four-letter word," which I won't repeat.
No.
I said, "But what about all the guys on location that broke limbs?"
Mm.
He said, "They're all four-letter words." So I said, "It's all right for you.
Mm.
You can afford to pay for a key instructor." I said, "The likes of the crew and ours, you know,
Mm.
they were dismissed." But it was easy to work with for him.
Mm.
And then John came in. We started the ADR. And John doesn't like hearing aids. He doesn't like the playbacks.
Yeah.
He wants to get if he wants to change a radio or something.
Mm.
So Roger does a few with the cue lines.
Mm.
It's still on loops in those days.
Yeah.
And John said, "Try it without the earphones." Roger said, "Can't do it. Can't do it. I need the earphones, the guidance." He said, "Try it." So Roger obliged. And he said, "I like that reading." I said, "John, it's not in sync." So he said, "I like it." I said, "You want to keep it?" He said, "Yeah." So I'm putting down there, John Glenn says, "Okay." And he, we had that sort of relationship with John. I must have managed to fit it. But that's the only time I met Roger.
Mm.
But he was well liked by all the unit.
Oh, yeah.
He was always a fun man.
Yeah.
Where Timothy Orton was much more serious.
Mm.
And I think he wanted to play the role more seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he did do Bonds. And I thought they were quite good actually. Yeah.
I think a precursor to Daniel Craig, who's being a lot darker, so maybe
Yes.
Timmy
yeah.
Dalton was just ahead of his time
Yeah,
in his performance, I think.
But he was no. I never worked with Dalton in the theatre.
Mm.
His work was always okay.
Yeah.
I never worked with Robert Darby either.
Mm.
But John had a lot of chat with Robert Darby.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would put this in. You just.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was quite heavily marked on his face,
Mm.
and he was always keen to get the good side of his face.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was always asking John to pick the best side.
Mm.
Yeah. But he was a good villain.
Mm.
Yeah, I thought he was a good villain. Like all Bond films, Living Daylights were full of effects again. I don't remember too much about it because it's quite a few years ago.
Mhm.
What year was it?
87.
87. So my memory is not so good. Anyway, certain things I remember, I think I was led to understand that the Jeep sequence at the beginning of the film, going over the cliff, they used about 10 Jeeps.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pile of Jeeps at the bottom. But quite a difficult job to do.
Mm-hmm.
But like all Bond films, it's something out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember doing the ice chase on the ice with the cars. It wasn't too difficult. They shot quite a few effects. I ended up doing all the gunshots,
Mhm.
the bombs, explosions, ricochets, what have you. Colin did basic effects,
Mhm.
and Derek Holding did the dialogues. And I think the ending was not good. To me, there were 3 endings on that film.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you eliminate the other 2 without making the making sense of the picture.
Mm.
I think basically it should have finished after the aircraft sequence,
Yeah. Mhm.
where they drive off.
Yeah.
But then you've got the shootout with Joe Van Baker,
Joe Don Baker.
Joe
yeah.
Van Baker,
Yeah.
and then you got the performance.
Yeah. The
violin.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were all,
Mm.
they were sort of substandard, I felt at the time. But the 3 of us got an award from the Motion Pictures Sound of America. It was, strange enough, it was not for the best film, but the best foreign film,
Right.
which was struck me as rather strange because it was all American money,
Yes.
so it was all rather strange.
Yeah.
But we'll show you a glimpse of it, the award we got.
Yeah. So
Yeah. We also got an award from the American Guild as well. My wife somehow destroyed it. So do we put, what do you want it? Yeah?
Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
see if that looks good.
Nearer? If I hold it, yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. Yes. If
Like
it's-
that?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. That looks lovely. Okay, that'll go. Shall I take it off you and then we can?
Yeah. Let's look.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Can you read it?
Oh, well, I'll just take it closer
And
so,
then you do.
so we can see it on the, on the award.
During our stay in Mexico City, the English ambassador invited the English Bond crew for lunch, a swim at the embassy, which everybody thoroughly enjoyed.
Perfect.
And I had a good swim
Mhm.
with Timothy Dalton in the water, in the pool.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, it was nice gesture.
Yeah.
We get these like that occasionally. One evening, Robert Darby took myself, John and Matt to an Italian restaurant. Darby's quite a strong personality. He virtually took the restaurant over, even working.
Oh, in the kitchen? Do you say?
Well,
in the kitchen? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got his blank.
That's good.
Even working in the kitchen,
Mm.
and we had a nice Italian spaghetti.
Mm.
As all I can remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Well, one sound effect I remembered from License to Kill now was when the villain is put in this airlock chamber and his head blows up. Do you remember that compression scene?
What was that?
One of the villains in License to Kill, Sanchez kills him by putting him in this
Oh,
decompression.
it was in this pressure cabin.
Yeah, I wonder whether you whether that sound effect of the popping in the head was yours or not, or
Yeah, but I can't remember what I used.
yeah.
Again, that was cut by
Yeah.
the censor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's nice noises for that.
Hmm.
Building up the pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, did your approach to License to Kill differ because of the film was going to be it's going to have a harder certificate in the. Did you kind of push it a little bit?
Not really, no, wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
You do what's necessary.
Yeah. 'Cause I know when I spoke to Colin, he was saying that some of the effects would be library and also some new sounds.
Yeah.
Do you roughly, when it became for Bond, was
Well,
a lot of it library or was it new, or was it a combination of things?
I can't remember, but I know that I like making new noises.
Mm.
I tell you, on the film I did in Munich in Germany,
Yeah.
there's lots of ski scenes,
Mm.
and the very close-ups, I used a jet
Mm.
plane
Yeah.
up and past,
Right.
speed up several times,
Ah, yeah.
and it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
I like to experiment,
Mm.
and even on Life Force,
Yeah.
we were working one weekend, and a message came from the theatre. I was still working in the cutting room.
Mm.
Toby says there's no noise for when the rescue craft latches on to Columbia spaceship.
Mm.
I said, you never hear it. But Toby wants to hear it. So I said, okay. So I had my own recording set up in the room. I had this wrench on top of a drawer,
Mm-hmm.
and I opened a bottle of pop. I don't know why I used pop.
Yes.
So my sister was on the pop. Nigel, my second, was on the ratchet,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in the drawer. So I said, on 3, all together. So on do 3, oof.
Mm.
I was playing at 15 inches a second.
Yeah.
I thought, well, it's got possibilities. So I reduced it again to 7.5.
Mm.
Again, it's got possibilities. I reduced it again to 3.75. Fine, that's it. I laid it, put it into the theatre, and went to lunch with Toby. He said, Vernon, he said, I like that noise you made for the, what's the word, locking on to Columbia.
Yeah.
He said, how'd you make that? I said, Toby, if I told you, you'd never believe it. So I'm not going to tell you. So things like that, yeah, I like to make. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And we'll often have jokes. We'd put something in the film which might lift the tension in the theatre.
Yeah.
Like in 39 Steps remake, they're in the toilet and I put a terrific fart. Yeah, that'd be fun. That didn't go down well, funny enough. And then on the Great Train Robbery,
Yeah.
there's one scene where the dead rabbit or whatever is in the coffin and it's smelling.
Mm.
And the station master says, what's that smell? Yeah. And the assistant in it replied something, I don't know what he said. So I said, have you shit yourself? He said, no, it's her, mate. But we had the tension in the dummy theatre a bit torn,
Yeah.
so I quickly took it out.
Yeah.
But when we did it in the theatre, the recorders they laughed their heads off. It worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that smell? Have you shit yourself? But things like that we used to play. Yeah, fun. And I think we better now get on to Great Train Robbery.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
In 1975, moving around a bit, I went to work at Pinewood on the first Great Train Robbery with Sean Connery, Donald Sutherland, an American editor, David Brotherton, an American director, Michael Crichton, who's a well-known author for his science fiction books. I did the dialogues, Terry Portman did the effects, and Chris, can't remember his name, did the Foley's. One of the things I remember is we were trying to get hold of Donald Sutherland, and he was been in New York, he was in Hong Kong I was going to New York, I was going to Hong Kong. And then he turned up in my cutting room at 6:30 one Friday evening with the production secretary. So she introduced us. I said, he said, I want to be out by tomorrow evening. I said, well, do you know what you want to do? He said, well, what? I said, well, Michael wants you to do your whole part again because you're inconsistent with your accent. I said, why didn't you go across to the office and phone him and just see what he wants? Michael had been called back to the States for some reason. I've no idea what he went back for. Anyway, he left me totally in charge. And shortly after, he came back to my room and said, okay, I want to be out by Sunday night. So it was 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. Okay. So we all arrived at the theatre, Pinewood Theatre, 9 o'clock. Start recording. There's always a slight frosty reception between the sound editor and the artist because he's never met you before. And there's you telling him what to do, or trying to guide him. So there was all that business. But after about 20 minutes, he used to point his finger at me and say, speak. So I give my what was wrong with it, and we go again. Anyway, we continued through to lunchtime. The feeling was quite amicable, it was quite a healthy atmosphere in the theatre. Went to lunch at the cooking billet with the recording crew and myself, and Donald Sutherland's either manager or bodyguard, I don't know what it was. So we resumed after lunch, going on nicely, and by 4:30 in the afternoon, I said to Donald, I think we should pack up now because your voice is getting weaker. And he said, I agree. So Sunday morning we started again. The voice difference was very noticeable, much more energy in the voice, and I assumed that coming back from Hong Kong, he was a bit tired. So we continued to lunch, and I was very happy with his performance and the energy in the voice. And I said to his man at lunch, I said, Donald's voice is so much more energy today. I said, I think I'm going to ask him to do all yesterday's work again. Unheard of. Yeah. To ask a main artist to do all his dialogue again. Anyway, he said, do you want me to speak to him? I said, no, I'll speak to him break this afternoon. So break came, I thought, I'm in for a caning here. So I took him aside and said, Donald, your performance is so much better today than yesterday's. I think you ought to do it all again. And to my astonishment, he said, I agree. But he took me aside and said, look, I'd like the loops to be longer. I won't discuss what loops are. You either know what they are or you don't.
Yeah.
So we went through the script, and I don't know if we packed up there, I can't remember. But anyway, I altered all the loops to the length he wanted. And we started again on Monday morning. And on some of the readings, we did 9 takes. We were shooting 3 stripe magnetic. You get 3 recordings on each stripe. And by that time we finished. And I must say, his performance, you'd never know it was ADR. Very good. And I also worked with Sean Connery on the same sequence.
Yeah.
And Sean's always good. He's another nice guy. Very easy to work with. And So the film was finished, and I went on to another film called Yesterday's Hero with Susan Summers.
Yeah.
She's an American TV artist. I was doing dialogue on this picture, and Susan Summers, I accompanied Susan Summers to Toronto, Canada, to do some music recordings, and I was going on to LA afterwards. But during the conversation with Susan, she said she was going to film house the following day, and she was doing a film with Donald Sutherland. I said, well, strange enough, I'm going to see a friend at Film House tomorrow. So the following day, I was at Film House. Who do I bump into? Donald Sutherland. I said, hi Donald. How are you? He said, oh. I said, I could see there was no recognition.
Yeah.
I said, great train robbery. Oh yeah. I said, I remember. He said, but he said, on my fingers you put this horrible clicking noise as I'm about to open a safe. He says, I don't like that, and just walked off. I thought, well, thanks for 3 days spent with you, you didn't even remember me.
Yeah.
The other person I worked with on Great Train Robbery was Wayne Sleep. He had a few small parts in the film, but we had to do his dialogue for some reason or other, I can't remember. And I thought, what a nice guy he is, he's a sweet man. And I've since seen him in a TV series, all shot in India. And I thought he's not a bad little actor, I did a long session with Sean Connery on the first Great Train Robbery. Michael Crichton left me on my own in the theatre with Sean, and we got on very amicably, no problems. And at the end of the day, Michael came in and checked a few sections that we'd done, and he was quite happy with what he saw. But I had to say, Sean is another one of those people that is good to work with. He's so friendly, no problems. I'm sure all artists will like it. Towards the end of my career in the business, I was offered the film The Favour, The Watch and The Very Big Fish. Strange title. It was being shot in France. I was invited to go to Paris for a week to view the rough cut. And I met the director, Ben Lewin. I saw the rough cut on a Steenbeck editing machine, which is not the best place to see a rough cut. The artist in the film was Bob Hoskins, Natasha Richardson, and Jeff Goldblum. Funny mixture. And the director was an Australian called Ben Lewin. Well, Ben, I found a little bit indecisive. Not only in the editing, but in the ADR theatre. And I remember doing a session with Bob Hoskins, and we'd go through several sections of dialogue, and we'd never get a straight answer out of Ben. Are you happy, Ben? Silence. So I say, roll it again. So we do another take. And eventually Bob Hoskins said, stop the machine. Ben, how do you want this section played? He says, I'll do it whatever you want. I'll even stick a broom up my arse and sweep the studio floor, but tell me what you want. Because we all laughed. And the same thing happened with Natasha Richardson. There's the last comment in the film, and she's shooting it wild. And in the end she said, Ben, I do not know what you want. Please tell me. I've said it 100 times. what do you want? Well, we got there in the end, but I'd scheduled for 2 days. I think we went into 4.
Wow.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was done at the recording was done at the Mayflower Theatre in London. The roles in the favour of Bob Hoskins and Natasha Richardson, part of their life was involved with dubbing all the sex grunts and groans on porno films. It was quite amusing. After I viewed the rough cut of the favour that watched the baby fish, the director said to me, "What do you think of it, Vernon?" I said, "Well, it's different." It was a strange story, a cross between a little bit serious, a little bit of comedy. Jeff Goldblum worked for a photographic outfit who were established in doing religious photographs. And Jeff Goldblum was up on the cross playing the part of Jesus and looking exhausted, saying, "I'm hungry." And Bob Hoskins was the photographer. That's it. Yeah. I remember now. It's gradually coming back. But we took a long time to finish it.
Yeah.
But I must say, I enjoyed the food in Paris.
Oh yes.
In 1991, John Glenn asked me to be the sound editor on Christopher Columbus: The Discovery. There were 3 films of Columbus being made at the time. There was Our Picture, and Carry On Columbus, and 1492. And I have to say they all died a death. But the making of The Discovery was strange, because I was taken on to do the sound side. The unit was shooting in Malta. They shot for about 6 weeks. The film was incomplete in shooting. They came home, back to Pinewood, and they edited all the material that was being shot. And between the producers, directors, decided what they want to make the film complete. So they went back to Malta, and I eventually ended up. We were originally going to dub at MGM in Hollywood, and I took the film to Orlando, and I was working adjacent to Universal Studios in Orlando at a very small TV studio, which has never experienced completing a full feature film before. They really didn't have the facilities. I'll get my teeth in on that one. And John came out eventually. They did the foliage for us, which was a big mistake. We should have done them in England, because what they did with the foliage, half the stuff was missing. Half the stuff was out of sync. Somehow we got round it, and John came out with some remark, "What the hell are we doing here?" on a big picture. But we got the guys down from Dolby, and Dolby said that was installed in the theatre. Came from New York, and we were dubbing from a VHS video, onto a large sheet. Can you imagine? The film took quite a long time. The guys in the studio were fine, nice bunch of blokes, and they knew what they were doing with the limitations that they worked to. And it was the first time I'd been introduced to working on time-coded material. I actually didn't work on the time-coded, but the two guys working on the dialogues were showing me how it was all working. But they were also, I'd cut all the wild tracks, the wild track dialogues, before I went to Orlando. So they were going by my cuts on the numbered sounds. What did I refer to? Time coded.
Yeah, time coded, yes,
time
yes.
coded. Yeah. And it worked quite well. And they said they'd never seen anybody cut that dialogue in between words before. I said, well, there is a skill to it. Yeah, you don't want too many clicks and bangs going through the dialogue. And I guarantee most of the cuts I do, you never hear anything. You can't hear. You can squeeze S's, you can squeeze E's. You know, I learned it from Harry Miller from the beginning. And anyway, we got through the dub. I visited Universal Playground, or whatever they call it, and I went on the this flying car business. Something in the past.
Oh, Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Yeah, I went on that and a couple of other things, but it was always crowded in there. There were always queues.
Yes.
But I had a free pass to go in there.
Very nice.
But I didn't make much use of it. It was very hot and sticky in the afternoons in Orlando, and there were some terrific thunderstorms. John and his wife took me to Disneyland one evening for a meal. First time I've been to Disneyland. Quite impressive. The first time I saw the old line dancing done properly.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Quite impressive. So that was virtually my last picture. So I came back to England and finally resigned from the business, or retired from the business in August '92. When the film was completed, I invited the crew out, all the crew involved with the mixing and preparation of the tracks, effects and dialogue tracks, out for lunch at a local restaurant. And I had to say, they were all much younger than myself, who were just at that stage getting to be 65. And I think the eldest was 30. There was one PR guy, Tom, he used to make a bit of a fuss of me because all the guys never used to stop for lunch. They used to order these big hamburgers. And I was quite rude to Tom. I said, "No wonder you're all fat but eat this every lunchtime." Anyway, Tom said to me, "Bernie, I know what you like. Cucumber sandwiches. Salmon and cucumber sandwiches." I said, "Yes, Tom." Well, he bought a plate full of cucumber sandwiches for a day. They were that thick. I said, "Tom, when you produce it again, you make them that thin. Please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Much nicer." Oh, okay, but and he eventually came over to England for a holiday, and I took him out for a couple of days. Yes. And he lived in I think on the other coast, on the they get lovely autumns with these red trees. No, I can't remember the name. Is it Connecticut?
Yeah, it might be Connecticut.
Yeah. Tim has finally moved to Connecticut. Yeah. She eventually married another director, and he did. I think his name was Peter Brooks. You know that? A director called Peter Brooks. Alex Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks. Yes, that does.
He did a film
right, yeah.
with Peter. Who's in Murphy's War?
Oh God, Martin, I've seen that one.
Peter O'Toole.
Peter O'Toole, yes.
Did a film with Peter O'Toole.
Mm.
It was written by Conrad. Strange film.
Mm.
He played the part of a naval officer
Yeah.
who had a weakness in strength. I don't mean body strength, but I mean in character.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The floor, yeah.
But I can't remember what it's called. I've got the DVD.
Yeah.
After my retirement, I got a couple of calls from my friend Les Hodgson,
Mhm.
a top Southerner. It was 1993, and I worked on a Good Man in Africa.
Yeah.
Again with Sean Connery, Dana Rigg, and all I did on that was help out on the foliage. And no real. And I worked at Twickenham. I shot the effects at Pinewood, and I finally worked at Twickenham. And again in the same year, I was invited to go on Death Train with Pierce Brosnan,
Oh yes, yeah.
Patrick Stewart. Director was David S. Jackson. I'd never met him before.
Mm.
And I did the dialogues, just helping out again.
Yeah.
Nothing really to report.
Would you have done anything with Pierce Brosnan at all on that one?
No. In fact, I never met Pierce. I forgot to mention that the director's name on A Good Man in Africa was Australian Bruce Beresford, and it was from an original story by William Boyd, quite a well-known writer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In 1933, I was working at Wembley Studios on The Life of Dame Minnie Melba, a big feature picture featuring Patrice Mansell, an American opera singer.
Yeah.
The producer, Sam Spiegel, and director Louis Milestone, famous for the 1930s film All Quiet on the Western Front, for which he received an Oscar, his second Oscar. I found the day terribly hard going with these two heavies.
Yeah.
If you've seen an early film of Burt Lancaster where he's waiting for these killers to murder him,
Yeah.
and these two guys walking down the street, Dartlick Street, that was Sam Spiegel and Louis Marston. That's what they reminded me of.
Yeah.
They really thick set guys. Yeah. Well, I think the interview has gone on long enough.
Yeah.
And just to wind up, I'd like to add that on reflection, I had a fantastic career. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Work was never a hardship. I've travelled the world at somebody else's expense. Spent some times in Rome, Poland, Madrid, America, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and it's been a thorough experience. And on the road I met some lovely people, good technicians, top technicians, knew what they were doing, and I can really say that I've been honoured to be in the film industry. I thoroughly enjoyed it and recommended it. And to think I started as a projectionist in working part-time in 1943. But for the luck of the good Lord, I met at the Pathy newsreel a union man who asked me to join the union. What a difference that made to my life.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done otherwise.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that I had a good career, a lovely wife, or had a lovely wife, and a good family. And I thank God. And thank you for being so patient.
Well, thank you, Vernon, for sharing with us wonderful memories of of, as you said, a blessed career and a blessed life.
Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Vernon.
Thank you, Vernon.